Hello, hello, people. Oh my god, it is a glorious day here in the Destinyverse. Holy moly. What have I missed? Oh, don't worry. We're gonna get into it, okay? There's some good stuff here. Okay, we were gonna do ban appeals in like 20 minutes, but there's a big court filing today that was just entered that we need to go over, okay? The people must know. Tell all your friends so they can see the new stuff. It's a short document, not too long, but what the fuck is E-Court? E-Court is mine and Kafka's debate show. Okay, we're gonna have ban appeals. We're gonna cover some juicy DGG ban appeals, including one that people might know and be excited to see, but that'll have to be delayed. And then we're having our regular scheduled E-Court, our debate, which is still happening at 1 p.m. But and that's going to be between Reasonriffs and Connor Counterpoints. It was all dismissed. No, nothing was dismissed. Okay, but there's just a big thing has come out. Okay, a big thing has happened. Well, Destiny just said, remember that KF and Jay stalking William Mac and everyone all happily and gleefully were posting this girl's docs and videos and everything else all over the internet. Two huge thumbs on that. Yep, we'll see. You were saying that Destiny picks were summoned to court today via Zoom. I didn't say that. Did I say that? Did that happen? Was that said? I don't think that was said. There's just a document that came out. Gives you a better name than eCourt? Well, come up with a better one then. I think it's a good one. Screw you. That's what I thought eCourt meant. Oh, no. What? That would just be court. The heck? That would just be regular court. Okay. Wait, is Fantasy Sloth going live? What is he doing? Huh? People watching movies instead of covering court memes? Wow. Okay. Is Kafka back yet? Oh no, he's still deafened. Kafka had to go take a call. I have an hour until an appointment. If you don't explain whatever the fuck is happening in your title in an hour, I'm hunting you down and catfishing you. I won't show up for deficit. SB 7. Okay. There was a document today, a surreply in support of their motion to dismiss. This was what the judge allowed them to do because he is allowing the amendment to Jesus Peña's expert witness declaration. Destiny was allowed a surreply of up to 10 pages. This one is 6 pages. And in it, there's a big revelation based on somebody who was deposed just recently. Okay. A certain person that some might know as Rose, perhaps. Let's see what this person Rose had to say.
Who could know?
Okay. Ruthenium6 says, I went to bed early yesterday. What's a quick summary from yesterday's document? Basically, they don't have a really good reason that they didn't show up for deposition or file for a protective order. They're probably going to fucking lose on it. Oh shit, Kafka. You left before I went over that case they were citing from that the judge had done before. Do you want to know what that order was? It was a motion for protective order. It was an order on a protective order. They did it. Mm-hmm. They filed for protective order before that deposition. That's why they got it.
Yeah. Right.
It was right before the deposition, and it wasn't ruled until after the deposition was supposed to happen. But, bruh.
Yeah. And I bet if you go and you look at that case, you will see that there was a stay put in place by the judge.
Also, in that case, there was a year left of discovery.
Oh, yeah. See?
Holy shit.
That's what I'm saying. Is like whenever you're doing that, you gotta make sure your fact pattern is like so narrow and so directly on point, or else I mean, and they're probably gonna get shit for that from the judge. But
they're cooked. Yeah. SB7 says you've got an hour. I'm already putting my whitest of white girl makeup on to catfish you, getting diagnoses as we speak. Good luck. Holy shit. Holy shit. Okay. Shall we get into it, Kafka? Are you ready?
Let's hit it.
All right, let's get into the memes. All right. On this day, November 13th, 2025, we shall be reading Defendant Stephen K. Bunnell's authorized reply in further support of motion to dismiss. Pursuant to the court's paperless order, dated November 5th, 2025, Defendant Stephen K. Bunnell II hereby submits the following reply brief in further support of his motion to dismiss, specifically to address the changes that plaintiff's expert witness, Jesus F. Pena, made to his expert declaration to correct certain, quote, errors in the record that he identified. Part 1. Introduction. Plaintiff's corrective filing confirms and resolves the central fact precluding subject matter jurisdiction in this case. In his amended declaration, plaintiff's own expert now expressly concedes that Bunnell's transmission of the video to, quote, Rose occurred on April 9th, 2022, nearly 6 months before the effective date of the Carty statute, and consistent with the testimony of other witnesses in this case. Pena's admission resolves the only jurisdictional question underpinning plaintiff's federal claim, whether Bunnell sent the video after the effective date of the Carty statute. He did not. Despite plaintiff's continued attempts to obfuscate this straightforward issue before the court, the remainder of Mr. Pena's amended declaration does nothing to change that fact. Bunnell's sole transmission of the video occurred prior to the effective date of the Carty statute, and its motion to dismiss should be granted accordingly. Damn. I'm late. OMG didn't miss anything? No, we're just getting into it. It's only introduction. So basically, they're trying to say that because Pena's amendment removes the part about whatever the fuck, Discord, whatever, it removes certain paragraphs that they basically say, hey, it happened before this. Now they're still going with continuous fucking distribution, whatever, but they're saying that that's irrelevant and it's obfuscation. He sent it before, didn't send it after. It's that simple. Oh, gee, we got a... Oh, thanks for the follow, Apollo. We got a Destiny tweet. What's the Destiny tweet? Tiny memeing 2 now? Oh, boy. I feel when plaintiff has time to goof off on Twitter, but is actively skipping her deposition because she's realizing her fraudulent court case is no longer fun for her. Look, old Twitter callouts. Look what person did 4 to 6 years ago. Look. No, follow. That's bad. Smug. You're not gonna guess what this is about. What? She even trying to say? Okay. Was that Kafka?
I would say, dang, must be nice to be able to have your phone out in class to text.
True.
To tweet. Obviously, that's where she is.
Because she's not missing any class, so she must be.
No, she can't miss class.
Tweeting that in class, of course. But who filed this? What is this? This is Destiny's reply in support of his motion to dismiss, which he is allowed to do now because the judge let him do an extra reply because they got their amendment to the expert witness. So they're responding. And they're saying that the basically he conceded that the original transmission was April 9, 2022 before the statute. Okay, part 2. Mr. Pena now confirms that Bunnell's transmission of the video preceded the effective date of Carty. Mr. Pena's amended declaration eliminates any ambiguity. He now concedes that Bunnell's transmission of the video to, quote, Rose via Discord occurred on April 9, 2022. Mr. Pena's new conclusion is consistent with substantial evidence in the record, including from the non-party deponent whose ex-boyfriend impersonated her in Discord correspondence he was having with Bunnell while pretending to be, quote, Rose, as well as plaintiff's own acknowledgement that she cannot, quote, conclusively determine that Bunnell's transmission of the video to, quote, Rose occurred after October 1st, 2022. See the hearing transcript, dated June 3rd. I was there. She did say that.
Yeah, it's also interesting if you look at the exhibit that they're referring to. So scroll up.
Or in this document scroll
on page 1. Yeah, on page 1 of this, yeah. So we're saying like ECF number 147-1, paragraph 2. It's really funny because in right after the second section.
I retarded. Wait, the introduction.
Yeah. No. After second section, the second line where it says ECF
gotcha, here.
number 147. No, the second section. There you go. Section 2.
That's where I'm at.
Second line. Yeah, there you are. Oh, I'm looking at screen.
Oh, you're looking at my stream, so it's delayed. Gotcha.
Yeah. Okay. So
I'll share my screen.
Fuck you. So they're saying here, if you go to the exhibit, it's him saying, the issue addressed in paragraphs 17 and 18 pertain to a Discord direct message from Rose on April 9th, 2022. He didn't put like allegedly happened. He didn't put like alleged by defendant, right? Or he could have just put the time that, his party was alleging. Instead of used for April 9th, 2022, the actual date it was sent.
And so they admitted it.
Yeah. So and also, to be clear, this is in an amendment. So he's saying, hey guys, I fucked up. Here's the correct thing I should say. And so now it's really hard. I mean, he could come in and amend it again and say, oh, oops, in my amendment, I used the wrong date. But that looks, I mean, you can do that.
Also, his amendment would have to say, I used the date on that it appears to be in the message, but it could also be that, like, that's what it would have to be, right? Because if he said the date was October, then that's like, you are perjuring yourself, bro. So, yeah.
Exactly. So, just pointing that out.
And also, because in case it's unclear, MBTT7 just asked, am I understanding this correctly? Rose was the non-party deponent? Yes. The non-party deponent whose ex-boyfriend impersonated her in Discord correspondence, saying Banal while pretending to be Rose. Well, actually, no. You are not understanding correctly. It is not Rose that is the non-party deponent, because there is no Rose. Rose is not a real whatever. There's a person whose ex-boyfriend was impersonating her and using like her identity as whatever, but this person is not Rose. There is no Rose. Rose was solo all along.
Just like Fight Club.
According to this girl who was deposed. Remember last night we were reading documents and saw that there was a deposition in Illinois on October 23rd or something. Seems like we know who that is now. Haha. Oh boy. And then here's from Pixie's hearing. I don't know the exact date. He asserts the dates were reversed. It's European time or something. It's actually April 9th, 2022. So I don't really know. Like, we would have to verify that information. Let's keep reading. Moreover, Mr. Peña has also retracted his accusation typo. That's okay. I no longer have any issue with any typo in any of these documents ever after last night's shit show. I don't know how they fucked that up so hard, okay? That Banal engaged in evidence, quote, spoliation. Paragraphs 7, 17, and 18 of his original declaration, Mr. Peña asserted and concluded that Banal's Discord chat export has been, quote, tampered with. That Banal had deleted or altered messages, and therefore Banal's evidence of the April 2022 transmission of the video to, quote, Rose is not reliable and would require further discovery. Footnote 1. Plaintiff's contention that additional discovery is needed to establish subject matter jurisdiction is belied further by her failure and refusal to appear for her duly noticed deposition on November 3rd, 2025. Plaintiff cannot have it both ways. Ooh. You say you need additional discovery, but yet you do not show up for discovery. Curious.
Yep.
In his amended declaration, Mr. Peña concedes that his initial conclusions were incorrect, and he admits that Discord's time grouping design feature explains the supposed inconsistencies he highlighted in his declaration. Mr. Peña now withdraws his prior claim of evidence tampering, and no longer asserts that Banal manipulated the data demonstrating the April 2022 transmission of the video to Rose. Plaintiff herself acknowledges that the paragraphs of her opposition, predicated on those now withdrawn statements, are no longer supported and should be disregarded by the court. Indeed, in her leave to file, that's what it says. Mr. Peña's amendment corroborates Banal's positions since the outset of this case. Discord log export reflecting Banal's correspondence with Rose is accurate, the message thread with the Rose is intact, and Banal's transmission of the video occurred in April 2022, preceding the effective date of Cardi by nearly 6 months. Wow. Holy fuck. How does he do it? Okay.
Yeah, this is pretty brutal because whenever there's an expert witness, the best thing to do, like usually your go-to is discredit this expert witness, whether that's by making them look stupid or using your own expert witness to undermine and things like that. Mm-hmm. The best thing you can ever do with an expert witness is use their expert witness. Well, use their expert witness for your advantage and say, here is how this guy's argument supports us, like conclusively. So this is because now they've paid this man $10,000 or however much it costs to get this statement to help the other side win, right? They didn't have to they didn't have to pay for an expert witness. They just used theirs against them, which is a best case scenario.
Simple as. Okay. Part 3. Mr. Pena's expert testimony is unreliable and fails to establish subject matter jurisdiction. Rather than submit admissible evidence to conclusively establish subject matter jurisdiction here, plaintiff instead relies on a purported expert's testimony to obfuscate plaintiff's fatal jurisdictional defect. Worse still, Mr. Pena was retained to assess alleged tampering of Discord messages, yet his core accusation was based on a basic misreading and or misunderstanding of Discord's own interface. Such a fundamental misunderstanding of the platform confirms that no actual forensic analysis was performed. His conclusions were the product of unfamiliarity with the very system on which he claims expertise. This is pretty true. He didn't know that fucking Discord message will group the fucking timestamps. That's pretty fucking bad if you're purporting to be an expert on Discord. To be clear, Mr. Pena's retraction confirms that no tampering or fabrication occurred and exposes the unreliability of the very opinions upon which plaintiff relies. Even now, Mr. Pena only speculates Spinell's evidence is unreliable unless digitally fingerprinted, but he identifies no actual alteration, loss, or destruction of data. Instead, Mr. Pena relies entirely on a negative inference that the absence of a cryptographic hash somehow renders the production unreliable. Such speculation is not a forensic finding, but a rhetorical attempt to manufacture ambiguity where none exists. The date on which Mr. Bernal transmitted the video is a dispositive question. It is easily resolved from the face of the Discord chat log, the evidence in the record, as well as by plaintiff's own expert's admission. No specialized computer forensics knowledge is required to read a date stamp. Plaintiff's continuing effort to reframe the transmission of the video on Discord as a complex, continuous disclosure is nothing more than an attempt to obscure the record and preserve a theory that her own expert cannot substantiate.
So this is a really good move by Andy B here. So a lot of the times you might have a situation where it's like, oh, on the face of this, something seems one way, but if you're an expert, it actually is another way, right? Common sense might not prevail here. You need someone that's really been steeped in this to understand what we're talking about. And that's really what Doe's been trying to do with this expert witness and go like, whoa, 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 guys, you don't get it. Discord is so poorly designed that you can't even read the dates unless you bring an expert in here to read this shit. More realistically, it's about, how this data is stored, blah, 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 all that stuff. The problem is that the information here is not so complex that you would need it. Also, because you can use context to find it. You can verify it in a lot of other ways to see how that date would be read, right? Like the idea that we need this expert here to prove all of this is kind of silly when it's like, why don't you just release all of the Discord logs that include date stamps in that format, and you would see immediately, oh, okay, this is a European format. That's why we should be reading it this way. This guy coming in here and going like, oh, there's obviously some tampering. It's very it's really, really remote, not just because it's like, oh, this is like so obvious facially. It's also really remote because there's literally no other evidence at all pointing to tampering. So whenever you have you're making an allegation and all you can do is bring in an expert witness, somebody you paid to testify to something, it's just a really weak and bad look, unless it's except for very specific scenarios, in my opinion. I think it's just one of these things where it's like, if she had 3 or 4 things where oh, that's suspicious, it does kind of look like he's tampering it, and then you have an expert witness show up and go, yeah, no, the reason why it looks like that is because he is, and I can even show it with it. Right now, he's just maybe it really is just I can imagine a way that it's tampered, so that means I'm going to testify that it's tampered.
Which is
so
actually,
especially since you retracted it. I'm sorry. Yeah, sorry. I'm actually retarded, and the ways that I imagined he tampered it did not objectively happen, so I have to take that back.
Yeah. So stupid. So yeah. In conclusion, for the reasons stated herein and in Bernal's moving papers, Bernal respectfully requests the court grant the motion to dismiss for lack of subject matter jurisdiction. Looks admitted today. So clearly, the big bombshell here is that Mr. Pena's new conclusion is consistent with substantial evidence in the record, including from the non-party deponent whose ex-boyfriend impersonated her in Discord correspondence he was having with Bernal while pretending to be Rose. as well as plaintiff's own acknowledgement, she could not conclusively determine it. Holy fucking shit.
So this is pretty brutal. Whenever we're looking at let's see. I wanted to look at her response to the motion to dismiss again. 1 second.
Let's look at it. Let's pull it up.
What is it? It's is it 134?
Possibly. No.
No.
Motion to dismiss was 132. Her response was 139.
Thank you. Okay. So in the motion and her response, right? First of all, they're saying, hey, we can't know what date it was, but it was probably in October. That's been now put to bed by her own expert and her own testimony, right? Then we've got the let's see, material issues of fact dispute that prevents summary judgment. There, it tainted and inadmissible evidence, right? So, hey, look, we can't actually look at, so if you go to page 5, so section 3, subsection A, that section is entirely based off of the expert opinion that has now been retracted. So that is not going to get granted. That is not a valid response.
Yep.
B, so let's see. This is we're going back to the date and it's saying, and so they're saying, nope, the date that's been confirmed. Then you go to, let's see. I thought there was only a C.
Well, it's part of B is like the court has already determined defendant's evidence regarding the disclosure to Rose is murky at best, which is what was said. But your expert disproved it. He made it not murky. He said it happened April 9th, 2022.
B is no longer a valid response to the motion dismissed because we just confirmed it with your own expert witness. Okay, and then there's the ABMC question, which, I mean, technically,
it's probably the only thing still standing in the way of a motion dismiss.
Theoretically, but it's really hard to. I don't. This feels so remote. There's so little information here to base a claim off of, right? If she showed up originally and said there's a woman who might have seen a video of me having sex before, sent by Destiny, unrelated to this public disclosure of it, I don't know how that keeps this case alive because no part of my issue is that no part of this disclosure of Abby and C, if it had happened, is related to the KF leaks, unless I'm mistaken, right? And so if there's nothing connected, if Abby's not connected to the KF leaks, I don't know where a public disclosure is happening. There might be a private disclosure between Destiny and Abby and C, and there could be a conversation about that. But that is not in this case.
Cardi, in theory, also covers private disclosures, right? Doesn't need to be a public.
I thought that was only the state ones were for private. I thought that the federal ones were for.
Let's see, Cardi statute.
Is it just?
I'm pretty sure it's just any transmission, which is why the issue would come. No matter what, but
maybe you're right. Maybe I've got them reversed.
Just disclosure. Yeah.
Okay. Well,
maybe either way, like.
Well,
the issue is that there's not been shown.
Well, yeah, the issue is one that it's not been shown. 2, that private disclosure with Abby MC. Let's say it is a private disclosure that happened with her. I think that a lot of the issues that have been brought up before of implied consent, of damages that can be shown, things like that. I think there's a lot of those questions around with Abby MC that it doesn't make it where it's like all we need to do is prove that Abby MC received the video and then boom, we got it. It seems like there's a whole lot of other things in the way that I feel like would probably throw up some roadblocks for the judge denying the motion to dismiss. I still think, motion dismisses are hard to get. I feel like though they are at this is probably the strongest case they could make, Destiny could make to getting it. I think it's really hard for them to it's really hard for Doe to overcome the issues with the ABMC claims, especially since
the fuckery
there's just no
her.
Yeah, there's just no there's nothing here that shows an actual disclosure happening of the related material, right? It just whenever you're sufficiently pleading facts and stuff like that, if you show up with I think something happened, sometimes that is valid, right? But you have to say why you think that happened, and well, maybe they have an affidavit from ABMC saying that. The affidavit, I think, I would say I would argue is not sufficient.
Yep. I agree. Also, quick meme. Destiny types in DAG chat. Every day this spoiled dipshit drags this case out is another day the solo guy gets to cover his tracks. Smile. So cool. Not wrong. So, Peach asked in Kick Chat, does sending it to one person privately approve any of her damages or anything at all? I mean, the issue is, like, as always with this case has always been that because Destiny's transmission to Rose was before he did his statute, that damages, like, regardless of, like, if she lost the case, or if Destiny lost the case, it would always be a fucking question, like, what damages is he liable for? Because his sending to Rose was before, meaning it. How do you judge what the damages are there, right?
Yeah.
Like, well, let's say even if they did, even if somehow ABMC proved that he did send it to her, like, then I don't even know what, and then what? Like, it would still only be damages for sending it to Abby. What are those damages? I don't
know. Damon, you asked in chat. She had 9 months to produce evidence and didn't. What would lead the judge to believe there is any if she was unable to produce it? Mm-hmm. That's a question for MSJ. He's not going to look at something like that really for the motion to dismiss. I think that they make an argument in the motion to dismiss that Abby had an opportunity to testify at one of the hearings or had a chance, but has been dodging subpoenas. He can consider that as to like the whether or not that that evidence is going to be available, because people need to realize when you sign an affidavit and put it on the record in a trial, generally what you are saying is, here is testimony I'm willing to say at trial. That's really what an affidavit is saying when you put it into a case. And so Destiny's arguing, hey, look, she put this affidavit here to say that she's going to testify in the case. However, every chance she's had to actually show up and testify to that, she has not done it. So why should we believe she'll do it for trial? Yeah. Which is a totally fair argument to make, because it's just a waste of everybody's time. If at the end, let's say they don't get the motion dismissed, everything goes through, everything rides on Abby MC, they get to trial, Abby doesn't show up and testify, Destiny wins by default at the trial, essentially. Why the fuck did we go through all this whenever right now we can see that it's indication that that's going to happen, right?
I'll go further than what you said. The argument that they make in the motion to dismiss against Abby MC evidence counting is the counter evidence that Destiny presented, which is him showing his logs with Abby MC and that there is no Google Drive link to containing the video with Pixie. That instead it was the Google Drive links with stuff from Peach. So that's their counter to that, and that because they have evidence that contradicts FMC's testimony, that's why it should be dismissed, because the record demonstrably shows that her allegation is false. That would be that. Which in that case, it would depend on if they accept Destiny's evidence in that regard, right? In theory.
Yeah. I mean, I think that they've done a very good job of showing the judge why it's not risky to it's not a risk to rule against the motion to dismiss. Right? It's not a risk to rule for the motion to dismiss. I'm sorry. Mm-hmm. The big thing you want to do in a lot of these cases with a motion to dismiss is tell the judge, look, if it goes to appeal, you're going to be safe, because judges don't like being turned over on appeal. Yeah. And so if you can say, look, if you go to appeal, here's why your decision would be upheld, right? I think for the first two arguments, I think they've got that very strong. For the third argument, I think there is going to be some judicial discretion that needs to happen, and it's going to be, I think it favors Destiny, but you never know on this. The judge might literally go, actually, this case for a motion for summary judgment is so strong, I'm not going to grant this, and just let you do a motion for summary judgment. Because if he overturns on a summary judgment, that's harder to get it overturned on appeal. And if he can foresee that easily happening, he might just go, no, I'm not going to do motion.
Which might also be motion. And I mean, Destiny's kind of said it since this motion to dismiss was filed. Like it's a long shot, maybe, but on summary judgment, they expect that'll happen, because what happens in between now and motion to dismiss, right? In theory, I mean, since we saw from last night's document, person they deposed so far is Rose, and then who's left to be deposed? It would be ABMC, and then whoever the other people are that are in there, right? In their deposition of ABMC, if she doesn't show anything, then that's it, right? Like, the only way to keep this case alive is if ABMC at the last minute pulls out some proof that would save them from summary judgment. But that doesn't seem possible. I don't think it's possible. from having talked to ABMC because she's retarded.
Well, yeah, I mean, and like really, because like the it's very easy for them to, one, survive the motion to dismiss, two, survive the motion for summary judgment. It's actually incredibly easy. ABMC just needs to provide a message on a date after Cardi was passed, showing that she received video from Doe, or from Doe from Destiny. And it's like, this isn't complex. It isn't hard to access. It's very clear what they need. And the fact that we don't have it and that they aren't presenting it in their amended complaint,
and there's evidence to the contrary, like,
right, but it's just like, from their perspective, from like the perspective of the judge, it's like, there's very easy evidence you can just give me right now that would just obviously show that this happened. Why are we fighting over all of this other shit? Why are you bringing in an like, why did you spend money on an expert witness when you could just show up with ABMC's message logs? That's free, but you spent money on an expert witness, right? So it's just, yeah, it's really coming together that like, there's nothing here. That's that kind of, like I said, that thought process is for MSJ, not for motion to dismiss. But we'll see what happens.
Yeah, who's to say? Because, I mean, the thing is also, and you would know more, like, the sanctions are happening, right? Because that was a dog shit response. How does that factor into?
I would be surprised.
Does it factor in at all to the motion to dismiss and whether that'll be granted? Because it might just be like, fuck you. By the way, we're granted.
It really shouldn't.
In theory, no.
It really should. I mean, like, the judge might talk shit in the opinion. That might happen, but that'd be like dicta. It wouldn't be part of, like, I don't think he would consider that in there. Mainly because also I don't believe Destiny didn't ask the judge to consider their bad behavior as part of the motion to dismiss.
Yeah.
But the judge might like talk some shit and be like, these guys have been incredibly unprofessional. They've not acted right. Like, I don't know how I'm supposed to trust them. Blah 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 blah. All this stuff. At least officially, like unofficially, like just like how the judge is thinking. Yeah, he's totally gonna take all that shit into consideration and be like, these people are acting like fools. I'm about to sanction these people, and they can't even put up they can't even do a expert witness correctly. Yeah, like, what am I doing giving them any more slack whenever all they've ever done with all the slack we give them is just hang themselves? Like, no, like, it's bad enough as it is.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Quick, wanted to respond to one guy. I got one guy, okay? Door, who retreat Zip Zip 45 is the guy who cracked the law, and really he just walked into one public hearing, live streamed for 5 minutes, and walked out. I was covering this court case many months before that on Darius' stream on DG After Hours when Destiny was like not streaming for like a month after the Pixie Substack dropped. After that, before streaming, I had been on Pisco's stream and debated him for many, many hours on some shit. Okay, I have legal knowledge. I'm interested in law. I won't say more, but yeah, like, brother, I'm not just some random, okay? I am, but I'm not a fucking retard, whoever the fuck, okay?
There you
also,
go.
Tuck is in here, he's a lawyer, so there you go.
Yeah, this is true. Okay, I mean, like, yeah, this is exciting. I'm interested to see what we get from the Rose deposition.
Who knows?
You know, after the trial's over, like, it would be very foolish, in my opinion, for Destiny to release any kind of that depo outside of exhibits to his filings.
He would never release something from a private thing in his court case. He would never do that. So
no, but after everything's over, he would. I mean, there's no real reason why he can't share it afterwards. So it'd be interesting to see what's said in there. I feel really bad for Rose, considering like she was never actually a part of this.
Remember
it's just
fucking
it just makes
people
it
like
worse now.
Willie Mack just put her fucking docs on YouTube.
Like
it's bad enough that people were doxing her on Kiwi Farms, and meanwhile people
it's also like it's the thing with like it's still bad that she wasn't, like, if she was a person that was texting with Destiny and this happened, like, obviously it's still bad, but it just like is another layer of like, geez, like, this girl's like out there just living her life, and then one day just like everything blows up and she literally has no understanding what happened, and then she finds out that people thought she was sexting with Destiny. Like, that had to be just a brutal, coming to Jesus moment that people would believe that about her. But I mean, I hope things get better for her.
Yeah. Truly. And I mean, like, Dude, it really just goes to show that this shit has always been fucking retarded lawsuit. It was a retarded Substack, which is how this started. Like you, as we now know from, and Destiny said way before, we now know this from the hearing that came out. I said it after the hearing came out. Like Destiny and Pixie were working together before this fucking lawsuit, and she fucking got like mind fucked by Lauren De Laguna or whoever the fuck got it into her head that she needed to sue Destiny. Like they were already working on a case to, you know, file with the FBI, like so they can investigate, find out who Solo is and how the fuck this person had access and to leak everything, and also because the Cardi statute, right? Destiny has a case against Solo who leaked this stuff on Kiwi Farms because that would be within the Cardi statute because it's after October 1st, 2022, and a massive case because it's like however many videos that were submitted, and it would in fact be there could be multiple plaintiffs because it wasn't just Destiny's who shit was fucking leaked. It was Pixie's and whoever else is in there, right? Like,
well,
it would
also,
be a pretty slam dunk case if they were able to find who Solo is to fucking get this guy for however much shit they get him.
Well, and let's
yet,
not forget,
it's all fucked now because Destiny has to waste money on this fucking case.
Sure, but also let's not forget a big part of this. Remember, let's not forget everybody that was like, "Oh my God, Destiny's got all of this child porn on his computer. Oh my gosh, this is just Destiny knew the whole time." Blah blah blah. So far, it's not. It seems like Destiny did not know this person was underage. There's a lot of reasons why he would not think that, and he took all the steps he needed to once he found out about it.
And
Solo Tiny Leaks, however,
now that we know it's not, there was no actual Rose. This was a person who was in fact like we knew it either way, but this is a person who was trying to pretend to not be an underage person.
One second.
Like, duh.
No. You're missing it. Solo Tiny Leaks knew that Rose was underage when those videos were made, right. Knew she was underage in those videos, and then sent them to Destiny. So he knowingly transmitted child sexual assault material to Destiny, a crime. So not only are all the things you just said true, but he did also actually do all the crimes that people are trying to act like Destiny did. Because he knew she was that age and he knew he was transmitting it. So yeah, he like if they ever caught this guy, he could 100% potentially face pedophilia charges or pedophile related charges.
Yep. Let me read a couple chats. Olive Drab 532 asks, so is the story that Solo was sexing him the whole time? Then when they reconnected years later, he decided to break character, but he never thought to blackmail him beforehand. We don't know exactly because they only deposed Rose as far as I know, and obviously we don't have access to whatever she said in their deposition. But so far what we know is that let's call her Rose, okay, for lack of a better name because I'm not using her real actual doc's name, okay. Rose said in their deposition that her ex-boyfriend was impersonating her in correspondence with Destiny. So that's what we know, okay. So we know that Solo did try to blackmail Destiny with that shit. A couple years after, the plan appears to be that the whole time was like probably just to blackmail, and that it was just waiting for the right moment to do it. And whenever he did it, that's when it was. And who the fuck knows whatever else? You'd have to ask Solo. But Jesus. Best There Is 44 asks, my only thing is, didn't Destiny say he called Rose before? I don't remember if he said that. Possibly. In either case, could still, like, catfishers have called people before, like, they'd use a voice changer, or he got an actor, or whatever, right? Also, what somebody else said, given her own legal implications, wouldn't her lying on her deposition be her only choice here if it was her? Else she'd admit to a lot of crime, no? She could be full of shit and lying that it was her and making up whatever, but it felt like with public shit that is known, there is a Solo. Like, there was another person that was involved in this shit. So, it wouldn't make sense. In theory, it could have been, like, them two working together and she's, like, throwing the Solo person on the bus, but, I mean, I don't see why we'd have to think that. Like, this was, as seemingly, an underage person, a girl, woman, now, right? Like, even if it was, like, legally, there's some other shit, right? Like, how much is she responsible if legally she was a minor when this was happening. I have no idea. Maybe Kafka, you know more, but
I'm sorry, I got a work email that I have to respond to. So I agree with you.
True. There we go. Kafka agrees. But a question for you I'll ask you once you're done with that. Kafka. Oh, thanks for the follow. Playcations, Dumb Gen, here because Q is gone. Nice. Hawks lead and Glock 19. Sap is the best. Clay ties. Thanks for the follow, y'all. I'll drive ask. So is Destiny's possession of them a crime, even though he didn't know? Depends on the law. Depends on if it's state or federal. I'm not sure. I know people have said that possession is a crime that, like, is a crime in itself without intent or without knowledge or whatever. But that would require him to be prosecuted for it. I would imagine. Maybe Kafka would know differently. But the reason that the crimes are like that is so if they can't conclusively prove that somebody knew, and because then anytime you're possessing, you would just say, oh, I didn't know, and then that's it, right? But in this case, there's really good evidence that he didn't know, and a prosecutor would weigh that in whether to prosecute, a judge would weigh that in how to sentence, and also there's another person who is guilty of way higher crimes in this case, that being Solo. So that person, they prosecutors choose who they're going to go after. They would choose Solo over Destiny because they can get that guy in way fucking more and get a way better here's what I did today, boss. I got this guy Destiny who didn't know that he was receiving shit from whatever. Instead, they would go, hey, I got this guy Solo who's responsible for leaking shit online and fucking, all that.
Good. Yeah, I mean, it's also, my understanding is from what Destiny said is that he's taken all legal steps he needs to. He's consulted with his team. Generally, whenever you have child porn, you're not aware of it. When the crime starts when you become aware of it. Like you have to know that it is really for it to be a crime, and there's other ways that technically you could, but generally that's how it works. And my understanding is in Florida, you then once you know it is, you have 7 days to essentially report it, disclose it, and then get rid of it.
As far as we
because
know,
they want people they want people to turn that stuff in. It's better for people to turn that stuff in so they can try to find the victims and help them, rather than, or the people that are distributing it, rather than people going, I have child porn and I didn't realize it. Okay, I'm just going to delete it, and then boom, now whoever created it, sold it, distributed it, now they can't really. There's no evidence to go after them. So they'd rather people turn it in, give those people a grace period, and say whatever. Because hey, I mean, it happens. It hasn't happened to me, but it happens to some people apparently, where you just accidentally just end up with some child porn. Okay, we've got 7 minutes until our scheduled debate happens. I'm updating some stuff. If you want to keep going with chat, you go ahead. I'm going to be muted while I get things ready.
Okay. Yeah. Do we have the I'll get that open while we're doing that. Do we have in the drive our script? Is that prepared? If not, I can do that while you're working on other stuff. But just so we have it for the start.
Why don't you go and check? I'm not sure. You go check. I'm working on some other stuff.
Sure thing. All right. Read some chats while I'm doing this. What do people have to say? I was ignoring kind of YouTube chat because while we were fucking actually reading the documents, but Minterspray asked, every time Destiny leaves, something comes out. Yeah, dude, this guy needs to stop going to fucking places. Why is he ever traveling? Bro, stop doing it. You got all the bombshells and you're not even here. What the hell? TLD1W. Basically, the response from today was a sir reply because the judge said, oh, okay, we're going to allow this expert witness to correct his own fucking shit. So in exchange, you get an extra reply to that amendment. So you get an extra 10 pages. Destiny's response was due today, or I don't know, I'm not sure if it was due today, but it's up here now. 6 pages, very simple. The expert witness corrected himself, and he completely changed the story, confirmed the date of April 9, 2022 as the initial transmission. He fucking erased one of his arguments about continuous disclosure. The ones he has left are just obfuscation to get rid of the fact that the initial transmission was before the date, and bro. And also, you have no evidence to the contrary, including the fact that they now have gone in contact and deposed the fucking Rose person, and she did not, like, it wasn't her. And also, they now kind of have to correct the record because they said before that, fucking, that Destiny was messaging with an underage girl or whatever. So they now have to correct that because for some retarded reason they decided to put that in their fucking shit. So now they have to correct it. That's the too long didn't read. Kafka, if you're still here, and oh, he's deafened. Wait, is he deafened? No, he's muted.
I am not deafened.
DJ had a question in YouTube chat. Ask Kafka what he thinks odds Destiny's 12v1 motion would be granted. We kind of went over it earlier, but what do you think? Do you have like a percent on that?
Before this, I was at like a 25%, which is pretty high. I'd put this closer to like, I'd say like 40%.
Whoa.
I'd say like I'm at 40, 60 that he would get granted. Yeah.
There we go. There it is.
Just because it's hard to really put a lot of faith into a motion dismiss without like just absolutely dead to rights clear evidence. There is a hint of a question here, and a lot of times judges will just take that out. I'm not sure in this case, but no, I'd slightly favor it being not granted.
There you go. There you go, guys. What are his odds on summary judgment? What do you think, Kafka? I think that's pretty fucking
summary judgment.
Unless something came out.
I'd give him 90%. I'd say 90% chance of succeeding on motion for summary judgment. You're never gonna get 100, but yeah, 90.
Yeah, I agree. What time is Unbanned Court? Unbanned Court was canceled, so we could do this. Supposed to be with Mr. Moon. Mr. Moon was like, "Hey, don't do ban appeals. Cover this document." Big reveal, and it is a big reveal. So there we go. So Olive Drab said, 1,000 viewers, make sure to subscribe. True. Follow on Kick, subscribe on YouTube, follow on Twitch, do all this stuff. Okay. Hell yeah. Man, I'm so happy I'm not Destiny. True, Kokasin. True. Okay, the Hard Part 5. That's crazy, crazy news. Yep, pretty wild. It's Catfish all along. Who could have known? Shit, need to catch up with food shops? What do you mean need to catch up with food shops? What food shops do? What do you mean by that? Also, Kafka, I'm looking at the thing. I don't think we have a script, but it should be fine. We made it work before. It's fine. I'll pull up the past one and then just do that. Seems fine.
Hey.
I don't remember where we had that even, but yeah.
Hey, can I ask you?
Hello? Oh, DRT. What the heck?
Hey, I didn't catch it, but
DRT0. Hi.
Got Rose's deposition. Was it from Destiny's side or from plaintiff?
Well, depositions you usually would have both. For non-party deponents, you would have both sides, and they'd both get the chance to ask questions and etc. So they both would have been there. If you saw yesterday's document, or if you were watching me, or if you read it, or whatever, they mentioned that there was another deposition in Illinois, October 23rd or something, and that why they couldn't you have deposed Pixie at that time or whatever. That deposition, it appears, was for this Rose person. Who was
Rose, and do we know who found her? Because like
they said that so yesterday I was like being coy about who could this be that they deposed in Illinois, right? Is because whenever people found the docs, they found whatever, and then a bit after, Pixie's people put in one of their filings that they hired a private investigator and found Rose, and also she was underage and whatever the fuck, right? They just threw that shit in there, even though they didn't need to.
Yeah.
No. So that's what we know. And so they said that they already were subpoenaed her, is what they said. Now we know they got their deposition. Deposition revealed. Rose told them that wasn't her. She was, that it was Solo who was impersonating her.
I see. And are they gonna get Solo, or is that outside of the?
I mean, who knows? In theory, if Pixie wanted to go like absolutely insane retardation with a month left of discovery, their argument could be now, well, now we need to find Solo because only Solo can confirm the date of transmission, which they could have said if their expert witness hadn't already said that the transmission happened in April. But in theory, they could have gone, hey, we need to find Solo because only Solo can tell us that he did send it in October. Therefore, it was after the statute was passed. But no.
Presumably, like Rose told them the identity of Solo, so maybe they will try to find him.
Yeah, maybe. We don't know. Certainly, that could be in there. But if they had, other stuff would probably be happening. Like they probably would be trying to get him, or would have said something, or I don't know. Or Destiny would have said something if that was the case, maybe. Somebody asked, so plaintiff knew Solo's impersonating her, but still smeared Destiny with her age. So whenever they put the age thing, that was before they deposed Rose, so they technically didn't know. But yeah, who knows? Damn. What do you think, DRT? Pretty fucking crazy.
I don't know. It's like very fucked up that all those bottom feeders like doxed Rose when she was never part of the case, and like if it was, I always like doubted that it was her because she had so much pressure to come out with a statement, and the only thing that I was concerned about is if she came out with a statement like due to the pressure condemning Destiny or something, but it turns out she wasn't involved in any of it at all. So
yeah, who knows? I mean, we don't know yet. Somebody in chat asked, so it was Solo the whole time on Discord as Zip Zip? We don't know that, theoretically. All we know from this document is that Solo was impersonating Rose. We don't know if that was the whole time or not, but maybe it'll come out in the future if the transcript for that deposition were to ever come out, or if somebody were to say. But maybe if that happened, we would know if she said that if the whole time it was Solo, or if only partially, or whatever. Who knows? Is this a speculating overlay? Do I? Thanks for the follow. Eat me, I'm a pie. Thank you. I'm gonna need you guys to start over. What's up? Oh shit, you got here late. What's up, Look Up? If you just got here, if you want to catch up, go to my YouTube. You can rewind the VOD and then watch there. Or I think Kick also has that now, but I'm not sure. What's the Solo claim? Zip Zip? Mantis praise. Mantis, the Solo claim is that Rose says that Solo was impersonating her when talking to Destiny. That's what we know so far. In Doe's response, didn't they say there are two non-parties that they want to pose in like December? Sounded like one was the ex-boyfriend. Who knows? We don't know. From like the shit that we know ish kind of, Solo's not American. Whereas the depositions were like one in DC, one in Texas, one in I don't remember where, but I think one of the
wait, is he a Leaf?
No, I think the current memes is that he's English or like from the UK, at least. Who knows? Huh. I think from him himself in like the KF leaks, he said that because he was like he's the reason we know that shit is in like EU time zone, and that's why we know that the dates match up.
Oh yeah,
because he said that because people were like asking about that and whatever. He said, "Oh, that's EU." Oh, your Reasonriffs is in the waiting room. I will pull Reasonriffs up from the waiting room as we get ready to do the e-court. Hello, Reasonriffs. You are live.
Oh wow, I'm live.
Hello.
I hope I'm alive as well, not just live, but
Oh, so.
Yeah. Thank you for being the location, virtual location of this court case today.
Hell yeah. We're wrapping up some of the real court case stuff before we get into the virtual, the e-court case stuff.
Okay, yeah. Hopefully, it doesn't turn into a case of slander against one another that is an actual court case or something. But
no,
that'd be fun.
I don't think so. You guys aren't crazy.
how do you know? I mean, crazy people can hide it sometimes. But,
True. Maybe.
No, I'm just playing.
Can I ask about the more of the drama part of the news and not the legal
Sure.
part?
It's the drama shit.
We can, that's fine to keep it going, but once Connor's ready, we're gonna go ahead and end this and get into it.
Once
Okay.
Connor's in here, we're starting E-Court, but for now.
So quick drama meme. What do you think about the catfishing? How long was it going on, and what do you think about Destiny falling for it for so long?
I mean, we would have to see if he had reason to suspect that it wasn't Rose. I mean, the KF leaks. I mean, people were had suspected this was a possibility, but people were also believing it as well. So who knows?
Yeah, but it's kind of insane that for a guy to pretend so long.
Yeah,
and
I agree.
He could have leaked it much sooner. Destiny supposedly gave him a lot of shit.
I agree with you, right? That it was 2 years before he actually leaked it and used the blackmail material or whatever. But
yeah,
I mean, we know in hindsight, right? The timing of when it happened and when this shit blew up. He did it at the time when it was going to do the most damage. So
it did.
If you are a blackmailer and if you're trying to damage a person, you would wait until the right time to do it. It was literally the perfect time to fuck him over when he's at his peak, right? So
maybe before the election would have been better, but
maybe
in any case, I think my schizo theory is that Solo, while chatting to Destiny, fell for him, and then he was a scorned lover or something, and that's why he leaked
those videos. And
yes, it's like a movie plot.
Wow, that's a great theory there, DRT.
You can make a movie plot about a guy pretending to be a girl but falling for their target.
Now,
and something
is this your theory
along those lines.
Is this your theory about Solo, or is this you projecting onto Solo? Curious.
I don't catfish streamers.
So, but he's not denying. But he's not denying that he's in love with Destiny. He's just denying that the catfish allegations.
Interesting.
Yeah,
I love Dear Leader being chilling.
Fair enough. We all love Dear Leader.
Yes.
Where's Connor?
Yes, but when AI in 5 years, when AI can make full length movies, and we have the DGG movie awards.
Bro, the Destiny biopic when that comes out.
Expect the Solo Destiny
romance to be one of the arcs.
Rose triangle romance thriller crime drama.
Actually, someone should make a DGG the history of the movie, or the history of Destiny.
I mean, that's going to go hard in a couple years when he gets Kirk.
When the next case where he's having to fight against Kash Patel, that's going to be this is just the prep.
When he becomes the next Charlie Kirk, okay, whatever that means, okay, when he becomes the Charlie Kirk of the left, then that's when the biopic is going to come out, okay?
Yes.
And in the main role, the main role will be played by Peter Dinklage.
Hell yeah. That's the only guy who could do him any justice, you know?
Okay.
And we know how much Destiny loves Game of Thrones, so must be.
Yeah, it'd be truly honoring him.
Cinema.
Truly.
What is the Connor debate about?
Tit for tat strategy.
Give us a preview.
Okay, well, okay. I mean, I guess I get an advantage because I'm here on time. Hey, I mean, it's just factual, right? It's not a motive statement. Yeah, so Connor, it's about a month ago, there was he was streaming and discussing and doing a reaction to some of Destiny's videos on him bringing up tit for tat. And I actually like a lot of what Connor does, and I find him a very he's a pretty bright guy, and I find his heart's in the right place as well. So I don't want to completely dismember all the arguments Connor's ever made. But in this specific case, I was quite frustrated. And I'm not going to appeal to authority in this regard in terms of my own background in game theory. Although that does, of course, help me outline what these theories and these strategies are. And also the fact, and I've looked back over Destiny's older videos, and it's to my weakness that I haven't collected the evidence together in terms of previous videos where he's referred to tit for tat. So fair enough if that falls flat on its face, and that would have been helpful. But Destiny shows a good understanding of what tit for tat means. And even in the evidence that I provided for this case, Destiny's clearly stating what tit for tat is, because it's not overly complex in its ultimate skeleton framework. So Destiny knows what tit for tat is and is stating that Dems need to play more tit for tat. And Connor's framing of this was a false dichotomy between almost immorality and being virtuous. And he effectively, in a nutshell, sets up a straw man argument as to why tit for tat's a bad thing. And I'm hoping to show that today. And I'm not advocating for everything Destiny says. Let's be honest. I mean, this isn't in the case in the court right now. So this is a little bit of speculation, and I would respect that. But there's ambiguity in what Destiny says, right? Especially his more controversial takes. And I realized what his strategy as an individual is, which is of course different from what he's advocating for. And his strategy is to say something very ambiguous. It's not even necessarily controversial because it's so ambiguous, but it can be taken controversially. People then take it controversially, it goes viral, and then he clarifies. And it's not even a backstepping. He just clarifies, and then it is the reasonable clarification that we all hoped he would make, right? And so he has his own personal strategy going on, but let's not muddy that with what tit for tat strategies are, because there's more than one as well, by the way, and that's something that also should be clarified. And the fact that he's never said anything contradictory to what tit for tat strategies are, and thus one assumes when he's referring to tit for tat, he's referring to the strategies more broadly understood in terms of how the term is used, its historical context and such like. So I will leave it there and hope that Connor jumps on soon. Otherwise, in his absence,
I hope so too.
I don't know.
In his absence, you win by default. So
okay, kind of sounds like you're accusing Destiny of doing bait on Twitter.
Well, I'm not accusing Destiny of anything, actually. I mean, it's speculative. I'm speculating because I don't know.
We're speculating here.
Well, I'm saying that one can speculate because there's ambiguity. Why the ambiguity is there and whether it's intentional or not, right? Okay. This is why I said you could object on the basis of speculation in the case, but I'm not saying in specifically in this case, although I would counter that with anything of having the counterpoint of saying, no, he is contradictory. I would counter the fact that if Connor brings up, no, he's stating the opposite, then that's also speculation because it's ambiguous. Everything as Destiny has said with regards to tit for tat strategies follows in accordance with what tit for tat strategies are, right?
I have a question, kind of unrelated, but maybe related. Do you think his stance on the government shutdown being over, not being that bad, falls in line with that or no?
I would say.
Well, this is gonna. I will leave this to. I'll leave this maybe for the case because I do plan to bring. I realized over time, and also because of the position statement of Connor, that I should really try, even though I'm of course, a Bonga, I'm not an American, to try and ground it in the American context and American politics. And I do intend to do that because that's the context in which both Destiny and Connor have spoken about, and it's only fair.
Yeah. Well, right? I brought it up to Destiny a few days ago whenever I jumped on the stream to talk about the shutdown, like the reopening of the government. I'm pretty sure I literally said, like, in tit for tat strategy, like, when you are doing tit for tat, right? Even if it's like tit for tat and you're nice and you, like, give extra chances, right? And like, when the other side is defecting, you defect until they don't, right? And that's tit for tat. So, I mean, in this case, I think Democrats caved by hitting when the other side is tatting, but I don't know.
I'm going to try and go for a bit of a tangent for the sake of fairness here, because otherwise we might start getting into the weeds of what could appear in the case. And simply just turn this around and ask you, do you think at the point in which Democrats said, okay, let's stop the shutdown, do you think they got the timing right?
On when to reopen the government?
Yeah.
I think even if they did, which they might have, like, I'm fully willing to believe that. I think the strategy around doing it was like the worst. Like, this is the worst possible way they could have reopened at this time. Like, it should have been, if there was a plan, like, there should have been from the start a plan for when they're going to reopen the government. If they determine that the proponents will never come to the table and give them their demand, they should have come up with a plan for what they would accept instead of the ACA subsidies, the premium tax credits, whatever the fuck, expiring. And they should have come up with a specific plan about how they're going to, like, how everybody's going to agree, here's what we're going to say when we reopen the government while not getting our main demand, and we're all going to agree to it, and we're all going to vote that way, and we're all going to tell the people that it's because, hey, we see that the American people understand that we're fighting for them. We think that it's been going on for so long, people are going to start going hungry, people aren't getting their SNAP benefits, really disadvantaged people are going to start really feeling the harm from this. We want to help those people, and we've secured help for those people, and we're going to keep fighting for you. We got to vote on this for the Republican people. We can see from these elections that the American people understand that Republicans do not care for your health care, and Democrats are fighting for you. So, whatever, right? But that should have been the message from the whole party instead of the dog shit that it is now. So.
Okay, so it's not the timing, it's the messaging.
I think
possibly.
I think if the messaging was so dog shit, they should have continued until they got
correct.
their messaging.
They should have kept going how they, like, because their messaging was all, and it should have been, regardless of whether or not they were planning to reopen the government without getting all their demands. They should have kept going with we won't stop until we get this, right? But the timing is dog shit because they didn't change their messaging at all, and they didn't switch it even after reopening, right? I think the only way that the government should have been reopened is with the whole Senate being on board. Here's how we're gonna vote. Here's what we're gonna get. Here's how we're gonna message, and boom. If not that, then it should have just been keep the government shut down indefinitely until you get what you wanted, which was the ACA tax credits. But yeah, that's my thoughts.
So, but there is a difference. I mean, there's okay. You could say that messaging is part of a strategy. I mean, it should be, but of course, there's more to a strategy than simply the messaging. So there's a difference between the timing of ending the shutdown, which was in the court of Democrats, basically, and it was clear from the elections that the Republicans were being blamed for it, so it was working in that respect.
Yeah.
But there should be more unity in terms of messaging in the Democrats.
Not in terms of messaging, in terms of strategy. Because this was also a disagreement that I had with Destiny. I was going to bring up 2 days ago, I think, that he was live until he was like, oh, live till 4:30, and then he ended at 3:30, and I wasn't home yet, and I was going to hop on to argue. But he kept saying like, oh, the issue here is like the messaging, not just, and that's it. But I disagree. I think the issue is not just messaging. The issue is strategy. Like, even if you want to like steelman Democrats and like, oh, if you believe that Chuck Schumer like is allowing like whoever the fuck, like, oh, these are the 8 that we're going to sacrifice and they're going to be the ones to vote for it so that the rest of us can save face or whatever. Like, if that's at all what you're thinking, that's retarded. That's a bad strategy. The strategy should have been everyone in the caucus is going to get on board. We're all going to vote for it, and we're going to explain why. Because that's.
But my point being is that there's two aspects. This is just a part of the strategy, right? In terms of because it is
for sure.
The voting is a way of speaking as well.
But I agree, but it's not just like it should be more than just like I would not be happy if it was these 8 Democrats defected and voted for the reopening of the government, but everybody messages like the reopening is good. Like, no, everybody should have just voted for it and explained why and been on like with one message consistently throughout the whole party, as they had been for months through the government being shut down. which is really good.
I mean, and now they can't speak with one voice in the current context, right? And say, look, we did that. It doesn't sound as intentional, and it sounding intentional could have played actually well into the Democrats' hands to say that because it makes them sound more in control, right?
Sure. Yeah.
Also that, but also like, let's say they weren't able to do that for whatever reason, and that like they weren't able to do that. What the immediate thing that should have followed then is the Democrats coming out and saying these 8 people voted against what the party wanted. It voted against the American people. We do not support them any longer. Here is the reason why we were going to hold it out. Here's why they are wrong to not hold it out longer, things like that. And we're not, and we're getting that like here and there from people, and we're getting that, but it's again, it's not a unified message one way or the other of we're all happy this happened or we are not happy this happened.
Yeah.
Those 8 people suck. It's kind of this kind of mixed
piecemeal
message. Yeah, and Schumer especially should be the one leading that. Schumer should be coming out and saying, this was not my strategy. I did not want it to go this way. I'm not happy with those 8 people. And instead, he's kind of silent, which lets everybody speculate about what his role was here, which I'm not going to make it. I don't have an opinion on what his role was there, but I do know that he brought this on himself by not having a clear message after this happened. Then they wouldn't have room to speculate, or they would still speculate, but at least he could say,
especially since even if you like are the most conspiracy whatever, right? Like if you think that it was all like Chuck Schumer was telling these people that they're going to be the ones who vote, or like because they're not up for election till whatever, like that, if even if you believe all those things, right, then even that I have an issue with, because the reason you think that is because people like Tim Kaine are saying there's people in the Senate who also agreed with us but they didn't want to vote this way, or fucking like the other shit, right? Like, bro.
Yeah, like he should not be able to come out and say that with any kind of legitimacy.
Either Schumer is like conniving and lying in front of the people, or he's incompetent and can keep his people straight.
Yeah, especially like the most fucked up part is that if there is like this was coordinated, right? Dick Durbin, the second in command in the Senate, being one of the people who's defecting is like the worst message you could ever send.
Right.
It's not just
about
who it is. Yeah. But
like,
who do you think should be leading the Democrats? I mean, from a European perspective, I never fully understand why primaries are so late on, and why when a losing party loses like this, that it doesn't find its new leader a little earlier on to build around.
It's I'm not sure exactly, but I think it's just tradition, maybe, like that you don't replace like. At any moment, I think they could vote to replace Schumer with whichever other senator they wanted. I think they should. I think probably could be any, like, I know Pisco's said before, I think on Twitter, and I agree. I really like Chris Murphy. I think he's a cool senator. I don't know if he could do it. I don't know if he has like the particulars that would be needed to be Senate minority leader. But if it could be him, I wouldn't be mad, because I like Chris Murphy. I think he's got good messaging. He's pretty based on most stuff. But
grabbing a drink,
it's just like I think it's different from like the way it works in Europe, like because parliaments just kind of function differently. But
it depends on the parliament. I mean, there's a bigger difference between European parliaments themselves and the American parliament with European parliaments than.
Sure.
Yeah, I mean, there's so much diversity in Europe. I mean, I'm from the UK, right?
I think also like I feel this is just vibes based, and you would obviously know more, but I feel like in Europe, it's like way more like common to like, you vote of no confidence, your prime ministers, or your whatever, and it's like shit like that. There's just a lot more turnover in like European politics versus American, for whatever reason, whether because of how we do elections or because of whatever. But I don't know.
Well, that's really topical at the moment in the UK because Starmer, or Starmer as it's pronounced in English, I have a German pronunciation of his name because it looks German to me. There's speculation that there's going to be a vote of no confidence in his leadership.
Yeah, I mean, that's always the meme in like the UK, which is that you guys get rid of your prime ministers instantly, like the whatever that didn't last like as long as a head of cabbage or whatever the fuck, like,
Yeah, Liz Truss, but I mean, she's a MAGA head, right? She's a terrible.
No, yeah, that's really like, deserved or not, it's still bad for something like that to be happening, I would think.
But we also get non-democratic
a little bit against that, but
we also get non-democratic leaders as a result, right? We get leaders who no one voted for. So I don't even think.
Depends what you mean by democratic, but yeah, I know what you. Well, I understand your meaning, but yeah.
No, that's a really, yes. Generally speaking, most people would agree with that, and I mean, it's not. We don't vote for the leader, so in itself isn't democratic. But we vote for the party, but we don't necessarily know who will follow them, right? So you could say, well, the deputy prime minister, if it follows, then that can be anticipated. A bit like Harris stepping in for Biden.
Right.
You know, there's that argument put forward, and it's on shaky ground, but at least it's some kind of ground. But if you just get a random generation of a new leader, often based on the party which has been elected, then it doesn't seem particularly democratic at the very least.
Don't they elect the new leaders based on their members? Like they have like a party conference or something, and they elect the next
Depends on the
prime minister.
party. Depends on the party in the UK. So the Labour Party do it this way. The Conservatives don't, or they do sometimes. Depends on how they feel. I can't remember the ins and outs of how.
I think Rishi Sunak was elected.
Can you repeat that? Sorry.
Wasn't Rishi Sunak elected?
So who's elected? Sorry.
Rishi Sunak.
Rishi Sunak. I mean, he wasn't elected directly, but he was elected
by
the.
Sorry, Reasonriffs is racist against Bulgarians. So.
No, are you from Bulgaria? I've been to Bulgaria. I love the country.
Yes.
I had a housemate for 7 years from Bulgaria. He's one of my best friends.
He beat the allegations.
Where have you been, if I may ask?
I cycled to Turkey many years ago, and I went down through the Balkans. So I went through Dimitriograd in the south, across the mountains there to Sofia, and then from Sofia I trundled my way down to the Greek border, and then from the Greek border, from Greece I went over into Turkey. So I was only there for like 10 days because I'd spent so much time in Serbia that I really needed to get on with it.
Yeah. For context, for those who don't know, in case anybody doesn't recognize Reasonriffs, he's been on Destiny Stream a few times. He's Pragmatic Paper guy, contributor. He's the guy who was cycling across Europe for Ukraine. Absolute Giga Chad. There you go. That's who this guy is.
I'm from Sofia, so I'm glad to hear you've been there. And also the region you passed on your way to Greece is also very close to me and very scenic with the mountains and everything.
This was a great place to buy cheese. And the food was excellent. But Sofia I must be honest, I spent about 3 days in Sofia, and I ended up at a lot of parties. And I don't really drink when I'm at home. I see alcohol as something you need to be very careful with, but on trips I make exceptions, especially for locally made produce. And
you're just being cultured. That's not a.
Okay, thank you, Kafka. I was looking for an argument. I hope you're helping the case if it's space.
Whenever I'm in Switzerland, I am like last time I went to Switzerland, I was like 3 beers deep at all times. Just like I need to know what wheat beer is like over here. It was like immediately as soon as I walk into any establishment, I just skull a fucking beer. And I'm like, all right, let's see what fucking knickknacks they have. I don't know.
Yeah.
Well, I have to call this out. If you go to Bulgaria, you have to try the locally made rakia. It's a spirit, and it's very soft on the mouth if it's made well. It's made usually with plums, but it can be made with apricots and pears and other fruits. But if you get to a Bulgarian wedding, you usually get the best stuff I found.
The homemade rakia is famous here. People make in their village. They make homemade rakia with plums usually. Yes, it's like brandy, plum brandy.
Right, I don't want to.
It's better than any brandy I've tried. It's the best spirit I've ever drank in my life.
In Discord say thanks for the follow, Team Eyes. Bizarre Power asked, "Where is Connor?" We're waiting for Connor. He's on his way.
Balkan heritage.
The date will happen any minute now.
I really like brandy, so yeah, that sounds really good.
I don't know if it would be good or bad for you, Kafka. It's very tempting everywhere you go.
But on the question about the why they choose so late, do you think it's related to like the spectacle that is American elections, like the spending, the financing, and like the media frenzy that is? They want to like concentrate it.
That's also a big factor in like the kind of like what you asked before, Reasonriffs, like why do primaries happen so late and whatever. Americans are retarded, so it needs to happen closely or people will forget. So I think that's the reason, like, you know, we have like our election season is pretty like close to when the elections actually happen. Like in theory, the presidential campaigning for 2028 would be starting now, or it could be, but it doesn't actually ramp up until way closer. Same for primaries, same for any elections really. It happens just really close to when it's actually happening. That's just kind of how it is. I would guess they would also want to lump in like replacing a party leader around the same time for so like if Chuck Schumer's going to get replaced, it would be after the 2026 elections when there's like a new set of representatives possibly. So, but that'd be my guess. I don't know.
And do you have an idea of what Dem strategy should be between now and the midterms, and kind of maneuvers that they could make in regards to maximizing their support?
Well, like people have been saying, like when people are pushing back against me, like when Destiny pushed back or another conversations I've had, like when we're talking about like, oh, the shutdown and oh, should they have reopened the government? Should they have this? Like the argument is, oh, well, they're gonna get a vote on the ACA tax credits in December, and then they will have expired, so people are gonna be feeling it, and so that's gonna hurt the Republicans. And also, this is a temporary funding, so they're gonna have to vote on it again in January, and then they can shut the government down again. And then my thing is, if you're just gonna shut the government down again, why reopen it all, right? I think shutting down the government was a really good strategy. We've seen it work before, in some ways. It's really good here because it was playing really positive for the American people. I think it would have been good to just keep going, but going forward, I think it will be good to just, hey, keep shutting down the government and blame the Republicans because it will be their fault because they're not going to give you what you want. So, but I don't know now in January what the plan is. Like, are you just going to cave again? If that's the case, then don't do it. But if the plan is, hey, this time we're for real going to shut down until we get the Obamacare tax credits, then fuck it, do it. But I just don't know.
Well, I mean, I will slightly push back just to say that I would be okay if there was a strategy of like, we're going to get to January, get some concessions that we want, and then force it so that the shutdown happens right before midterms, right? Like, I like that was why I like the Schumer, like, oh, we're just going to extend it for 1 year so that this comes up before midterms. I was like, yeah, hell yeah, like that's a really good strategy. Yeah. I don't know if they could force that in January or how they would get to that point, but like if I saw them doing something like that, I'd be like, okay, yeah, that's a really
also
good
I could very much like get behind a strategy of here's the plan. Every time there's a new vote to reopen the government, we're going to shut it down. And then we're going to get some concessions from them, and then we'll reopen. And then that's just how they do. Because, like, and that makes sense as a strategy, because without doing that, you don't have leverage to actually get anything you want and actually help the American people from the Republicans literally just harming Americans. If that's strategy, fuck it, do that. Like, every 2 months, you're going to have a shutdown for a month until the Republicans give you something that you want. Until they give some concessions, even if it's not like the maximum you want, which is the Obamacare tax credits or whatever it would be in the future, get some concessions. If that's the strategy, fuck it, do that. I'm with that.
I mean, it's more than they've been. It would be more than what they'd be able to do otherwise, right?
Exactly.
Like, actually getting it. But then, like, I would also say, like, I know there's a lot of people out there like, I can't believe we're fucking using poor people's food and healthcare as bargaining chips. Blah 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 blah. That is people that are unserious about how politics work. If you are upset about that, then stop watching politics, because that's literally the point of politics, is to deal with really complicated stuff like that. And people get hurt. That's why, you know what? People
That's why it's so bad and Republicans are so bad and should be helping more. Like,
this is if you are upset about this, pay attention to your elections, show up and vote for the people that will not put us in positions where those have to be bargaining chips. Because whenever we have Democrats in power, they were not coming in and saying to Republicans, guess what? We're going to cut all funding to red states so we can get what we want. They came in and were actually trying to run the government correctly, be bipartisan, whether that was smart or not. But they tried to do that. And so the idea that like, I can't believe that the Democrats would like gamble with this stuff. It's like, well, guess what? They're sitting at the table. That's the chips they have. Okay. And if you don't want it to be that, get out there and elect people to make it so that this doesn't have to be an argument where healthcare is no. Healthcare is defended by 67% of the Senate and the House. So that is not even on the table for you guys to negotiate for. Sorry, you've got to negotiate for other bullshit. Okay. But that's why we are where we are. It's not that like the Democrats are like cruel or they are like cynical in some way that makes them like, you know, they're happy to see poor people hurt.
Destiny's will often make this point that the media is nearly always going to portray, or the right-wing media, which is a hell of a lot of the American media, is going to portray the Democrats as evil and, conniving and all this kind of stuff. They're going to do it anyway, right?
Yes,
but the truth,
sure.
I mean, when I wish I prepared actually more for this debate today than I have done. It's always the sensation I have with the writing as well, when we write for the pragmatic papers. But even in the kind of just scratching the surface, this goes back before Trump, and yeah, this goes back, to the 2000 election, right? To the Florida recount, and how Democrats reacted to that. They were too soft, and Republicans already at that stage were trying to bend the rules, not effectively cooperating. They had already ceased to cooperate in some ways at that point. Now, this goes back to the theory I was hopefully going to reflect on in the debate, but there are other more complicated models than just the effective reiterative prisoner dilemma, where you have degrees of cooperation and degrees of non-cooperation, right? Which is a bit more like reality, right? And in this case, some of the most effective strategies is when the other party non-cooperates, you're meant to non-cooperate even more strongly, right? Which sounds escalatory, but these strategies aren't about ultimate destruction. They're actually about maximizing cooperation, because that helps, everyone wins in the end, right? So this goes back to, I think, a point that Kafka is making about not understanding how politics works. And ultimately, it's not understanding how these strategies work if you think that you're just going to continually avoid harm all the time, right? It's a bit like Ukraine defending itself. If you follow capitulation this way, Ukraine should just bend over, right? And we understand that in the longer term would lead to more suffering than if now we put up a stand. But we will also see in the Ukrainian situation that if you leave it too late, the more hurt and the more suffering will come as a result, right? If Ukraine had been really reinforced after 2014, when Russia had already invaded, and the country, I live in Germany now, and people don't like Merkel for this. She continued to buy Russian gas, expanded plans for Russian gas purchases. So it's a terrible move. It's not just cooperating, it's like increasing your cooperation after a non-cooperative act. And so she has a role and responsibility in the might of Russia that was allowed to form, right? And because we're just avoiding any type of conflict, but you actually can increase overall what level of conflict you experience by doing so. And it's happening in American politics, it's happening in British politics, it's happening across Europe, I'm afraid. And part of that is not looking strategically at some levels of compromise in terms of some levels of suffering, like this shutdown. To give my opinion on the matter, the rhetoric and the fact that they didn't vote in accordance was pretty bad. But overall, this was better than avoiding a shutdown completely. And I think the Dems need to be, congratulated a little bit on getting a backbone finally, because I have pages here in front of me where they never had a backbone, and there's a little bit of backbone. So let's not be too hard on them. And Schumer as well, who, he could have shut down earlier this year, right?
Yeah.
And he avoided it then, and maybe he got it right. Maybe he got it right, because it was like maybe he's starting off a new game. And tit for tat is about starting with cooperation at first. Okay, I'm going to cooperate with you, but if you don't cooperate next turn, I'm not going to cooperate. So maybe actually, this year, Dems haven't done too badly. And instead of looking at the mistakes they've made, we should also look at the things they've done right. And I think there are good examples of that.
So I would love to know what you think, Reese, and maybe Kafka, if you also want to chime in, or DRT if you don't. But I, at the time, of earlier this year, when people were asking, hey, shut down the government if you don't get it, and then mostly Democrats didn't do that, I was on the side of, yeah, fuck it, shut down the government. I think it was bad strategy to have complied, because the immediate argument right after was, oh, look, the Democrats agreed to this, whatever. And then once the shutdown was coming around, it was the Democrats agreed to this a few months ago, but now they suddenly have an issue with it, right? And I think it hurts you on that front. Do you think that, I think the timing works out better to have done it closer now versus if it had happened months ago, but I don't think, I'm not sure. I think it still would have been fine to have shut down the government then, but I also wonder if it would have reopened and way earlier, and then I have no idea. I don't know what would have happened in that case, but I don't know.
Like if we'd like, if it only been for like a week or 2 weeks, or just so they had capitulated immediately, I think they would have. I think that would have been bad. I think that people wouldn't have paid attention in the way that they did now. I do think that the pain that's being felt by many people from it is going to make them remember it. And if in the short term they blame the Democrats, okay, fine. But here's the deal. I don't think people are going to blame the Democrats and go, and that's why I'm not going to support the Democrats. I think that's going to make them go, and that's why I'm going to shit heavily all over people that do betray us, and I'm going to scream at the Democrats to fight instead of capitulate next time. As much as people want to act like, oh, I'm going to give up on this stuff, like, sorry, you lost your food. You're losing your health care. You're spending way too much on it now. You do not have the option to check out because this is a borderline existential crisis for a lot of these people. This needs to be their signal to engage and to start supporting. And it doesn't. I'm not talking about monetary. You can just be like even just vocal support. But like this is the signal. You need to start engaging, or else your life is going to start getting worse. And I think people are going to rise to that. I do. And call me soy. Call me full of copium. But I do. I think this is the pain that people felt, even if it was for just a little bit, might be a wake up call of like, oh shit, no, this is real.
I think it still works in our favor, but I think it wasn't like pure 100% victory. I think there was like big. I think I don't know. I think it's true. Like what people have been saying, like this reinforces every stereotype about Democrats that Democrats should be trying to fight as hard as possible right now, which is Dems can't govern and hate themselves and are too divided and shit like that. I mean.
Yeah, I mean, I understand that people want to like come out and push those memes, and I'm, congrats to all those people for supporting communism. But I'm sorry, there were 8 Democrats that did this. That's it. You want to shit on them? Shit on them. The rest of the party has, a ton of them have come out and expressed how upset they are. Most of the people in the House have come out and expressed how upset they are. So you know what? It sucks that all these people aren't mind controlled together in some kind of CCP or MAGA party. Sorry that we have a party of people with brains and have their own independent things, and sometimes that works against us like this. But you know what? Go scream into a pillow for a little bit and come back and act like an adult so that we can actually try to help people instead of just sitting here and just getting memes on Twitter to get big. That's it.
Yeah, you could turn it around and say there's never going to be a consensus in a party where people feel open and ability to voice their genuine opinions, right? You experience consensus in a dictatorship, and that's it. So the fact that there are 8 voices that didn't really agree with the party line, is actually a really good turnout. I didn't even realize it was single digits. I would turn it around in that way and say that's an overwhelming majority who supported ending it, right? So I think that's the best way to turn it around. But there is this, that's another thing. I want to get a paper or an article written on this for the pragmatic papers, because you have this game theoretic aspect to it, but of course it's not everything. And there's studies on political psychology that show you have to be very careful with populism, because it's really very snowflakey and it's trying to self-victimize and say, look at me, look, we're really fighting. That's why they always have to be the outsiders draining the swamp, right? Because that's the narrative populism needs to survive. It's like a leech that lives off that narrative. And so you have to be very careful with not cooperating, that it isn't overly aggressive, or that the narrative and the framing doesn't become something of scary violence or something like this. Not only is that not actually effective practically, the optics, the rhetoric is really dangerous with populism, and it can actually have the opposite effect. So there is an argument to be made, and that does need to be taken account of. So the article is, the idea is behind quiet non-cooperation is the term I'm going to use, which is the idea that you non-cooperate, but you don't keep exemplifying that you're punishing the other side. You try and turn it around and say, well, actually, they're doing this. It's their responsibility. Their actions have led to this situation. And again, I think the Dems did pretty well during the shutdown, saying, well, he's in charge. And there was the meme going around, or the video of Trump saying when he wasn't in office, well, if it's a shutdown, then the president's responsible. Yeah. And that's the exact way to do it.
Yeah, and that's
no way to victimize. It's brilliant work doing.
Like Democrats were doing really, really well on all the messaging during the shutdown. Everybody was together. Everybody was on the same message. They just on Republicans. Republicans' fault because they're not. Because they want to take healthcare away from the American people, and the Democrats won't stand for that. It's the responsibility of the party in power when there's a shutdown. As you can see from Trump's words, he said it himself. Republicans, like Democrats were like reposting like Republicans from like tweets from years ago saying like, oh, it's the fault of it's Biden's fault that there's going to be a shutdown or whatever, like shit like that. And it was like really good. Like Democrats like, and we can see the consequences of such, which is the crazy elections went. Like the messaging for the shutdown was really, really good, and it wasn't just like political apathy where people were like, oh, I'm not going to get involved in. It was people voted for Democrats instead. Democrats won elections in crazy places that we didn't even expect them to win, and won elections by crazy margins. Like it was really, really going positively for Democrats. But now the argument is then that it would have like the support would have started sliding if it had gone on for longer or whatever. But I think I don't know if they should have quit while they were ahead, maybe.
One thing real quick on Reasonriffs, what you said, I think what you said, I generally agree with what you're saying there. However, I would also kind of point something out that I've been seeing a lot more recently, and there's an essay that I read a long time ago. I can't remember the name of it, but it talked about how a big issue for fascists is that they act like fools, and they'll troll and do all these things to tire the other side out. But whenever they are expressing power, they want to be taken very seriously. And so a really great way to undermine them is to kind of show how ridiculous they're being, or just be ridiculous in response to it and not take them seriously. So like, for instance, like famously Tim Waltz calling them weird, right? Went over, had a lot of big responses, right? But even like more recently, the Seattle, I believe it is Seattle or Portland protests where we have the inflatable dinosaur guys showing up to those protests, right?
Well,
like
you mean
those are
frog guys. It was a fraud.
Sure. Those are actually really important because one, they were nonviolent and they were showings of resistance, but also it makes it so that whenever they try to take their propaganda videos and propaganda pictures, it is impossible to take that situation seriously. It's one thing to say, oh look, these people were being nonviolent, so obviously you're the aggressor. Yeah, that works in some cases, but for a lot of times the fascists, as we know, will just lie and just make up what they want to show, hey, actually we did need to do it. However, whenever you're making these very ridiculous, very like silly images and they come and go, that guy in the inflatable penis costume actually was a deadly threat to our agents, right? It's similar in the recent sandwich case where like the guy threw the sandwich and like people were mocking the shit out of the trial. People thought it was ridiculous and silly, and it's like those cut so deep on people like Trump, like Stephen Miller, and people in that administration, because at the core they want their power to be taken seriously, and when you show them to be ridiculous and silly, and you make it where they can't reframe away from that kind of ridiculousness, it really gets to them, and it really gets to them because it's so plainly obvious that extreme violence to something like that, like arrest or like physical altercations, things like that, is so clearly wrong. It's the thing where it's like someone beating up a clown because the clown sprayed water or whatever. It's like that guy's obviously in the wrong. Maybe the clown even was like did spray water on that guy and the guy didn't like it, but everyone's gonna be like, why are you hitting this clown?
Yeah,
what are you doing?
Or like,
right?
fabricating a whole perp walk and sending a whole camera crew to arrest a guy from his house who said he would turn himself in for throwing a sandwich at a guy in full body armor, maybe.
Right. And so I would say like one part of it is like it doesn't take anything away from what you said at all. It's just something that also like I'd like to point out that like there is nonviolence, there is civil disobedience, but I think that there needs to be some kind of examination of the category of being silly and ridiculous in the face of fascism and just really taking the air out of the room for them, just making it impossible for them to be taken seriously.
It's an IRL meme, right?
Yeah,
we're memeing it live in real life, right? And I think it suits the modern context for a form of disobedience. It also, by framing what they say as silly, it gets people to stop really listening to them. And they also can't really complain about it. They can't victimize about it, go, so long as it's silly enough to be entirely harmless. I think the whole balloon thing started when Trump, in his first term, he came to London, and there was this massive balloon of Trump as a baby.
I remember this.
Yeah. I think it set a precedent, and I like to think of it that way. And that was exactly, in line with what you're describing. There's a case in Germany where they did a very similar thing recently. Of course, it's in German, so I never actually shared it with you guys, but one of the AfD leader, she was being interviewed in a very serious interview on a mainstream television, and she's incredibly good at talking. She is pretty bright, and she comes across that way. She's very clever at manipulating, the evidence. And they set up a choir behind her,
I think I saw this.
amplified, and they were singing in this choral tone. You had to listen out to hear the words. They were singing something a little bit not abusive, but there were some swear words in there, so I'm not going to state what they were saying now. But they were basically saying the AfD are not a bunch of nonsense, right? With a number of German swear words, but they were doing it in this beautiful polyphonic choral form. So it was silly in a very German way. And at the same time as making a point, and you could hear it in the interview. It was so loud that the TV channel couldn't avoid recording it, so they streamed this whole choral music to the millions of people that were watching the interview. And I think it's also a similar example, but you do have to be careful, nevertheless, with this method of not overdoing it. Because
For
then
sure.
you can backlash. You become the silly one.
Yeah.
For saying,
Well,
"Is that
also,
what you do?"
I was gonna go even say when Kafka was saying it, like I agree with what you're saying. Like the backlash could be that people start thinking you're the silly one. But also another like possible way that that strategy could backfire is that suddenly people aren't taking the other person seriously, and so they don't take their threats of how they could actually harm people seriously, which I don't think is happening, but you know what I'm saying.
Yeah, but these are strategies, you have to employ them correctly. Like the reason why I think it's working really great right now is that currently the silly stuff is coming from just people on the street, right? If Gavin Newsom going on Twitter and kind of being silly there, that works, right? But like, I don't want him to show up on a debate stage in an inflatable T-Rex costume. That's not what I'm asking for, right? But it's like it's again, you're really trying to juxtapose. You're really trying to show like just how extreme because the problem is that it's really easy to say, hey, look, this guy is this Hispanic guy. Obviously, he's illegal. Obviously, we need to get him off the street. He's violent. He's dangerous, right? If you see a guy in a silly costume and they're saying that, it's like there's just a natural resistance that calls for more evidence. Like it's harder for people to just like settle and go like, you know what, I don't know, but I guess maybe. So I'm just like I'm talking about people that are like willing to just tacitly allow things to happen, right?
Yep.
They look at that and go like, okay, what the fuck is happening? At the very least, they're gonna look more into it.
Sorry to interrupt, Kafka. I know you guys can see my shared screen, right? This guy's just been live this whole time. Wait, what the?
Oh yeah, I've been messaging him.
Yeah,
does he think does he think it's at 1 Central Standard Time?
I imagine we've messed up a bit with it. I'm pretty flexible, and he only wanted a debate for 2 hours, so I think it's going to be comfortable. It's good for me because I haven't spoken to anybody. I've been doing home office all day, so I needed to talk to.
Yeah, I mean, I've been doing emails in the background, so nothing too bad for me. Just,
I mean, yeah, like this is fine. Like I'm liking the combo, but
having more.
Zip, go into chat and tell him.
Can I offer a counterpoint to the memeing strategy? So I think the reason they are trying this now, like Newsom and the others, is because during the first term, like throwing out about, oh, this is the worst thing he's done yet. They did it like 100 times, and then no one gave a fuck, or at least there wasn't a result. And now they think, oh, trying to be serious didn't work, so we need to try to be to like laugh at them. But I think this is like a losing game because they thrive in the unserious environment, whereas people who actually want to govern need a level of seriousness to operate, and it just plays into their hand to lower the environment into the unserious. And I think that if the Dems actually they tried to be serious, but they didn't actually do it correctly, the serious response to Trump would have actually been to actually try him for his crimes and to try all of the sycophants for their crimes in the Biden term, and not like continue business as usual and just communicate, oh, this was so serious, this was so bad, but not actually do any consequences for them.
Sure.
We ended up in this situation because of those mistakes that you've just highlighted, and that's also why I say about moderation that the efficacy of these actions will be lost if it's done repeatedly anyway, and you can only really do it when they're in power. But there is also the argument, and looking forward and learning from the past about what to do, hopefully, if and when the Dems get power again, and being too. I've got other examples. I mean, there was also, for example, they wanted Merrick Garland in the Supreme Court, right? And then that was postponed by the Republicans right at the end of the Democrat rule, if I'm not correct in saying.
Yeah.
2016.
Yeah, and they never reciprocated with this. Like because we ended up with what's her name, Amy Coney Barrett in 2020. They could have done the same thing. They could have reciprocated, and they didn't. So when they were in power, they weren't harsh enough in terms of saying, okay, well, you do this. I mean, I suggested that they could long-term reciprocal stand. They could have stated at that point, forget it in the future. You try doing this in the future, we're going to reciprocate. And that's exactly what they could have done with Amy, and they didn't bother doing that. So there's a lot of mistakes made in power, and not trying Trump and not treating him as an absolute threat to the US like they should have done. I think you're spot on. We shouldn't have even got to this situation where we need the memes. But now we're in this situation, in moderation, I think is a positive thing.
Do we all agree that if the Dems win in 2028, they should go criminally against all the scams, all the insider trading, all the backroom deals with public funds, etc.?
I would be against it. I just don't think it's the priority.
Don't you think it should be a priority?
No. I think fixing our government and the way that we operate and the rules there, I think is far more important. Like right now, if we go after them, I mean, okay, but then they can just do everything again, get back in power, pardon everything we do, and undo it all. How about we make a system where they're not able to do that, and then we go after them? Let's get DG a state. Let's make Puerto Rico a state. Let's fix the Supreme Court. Let's do all that. Great. Now the system's fixed. Great. Let's go after those guys so they can actually be held accountable. And then the system can't be undone in a way so that they can all get off. Otherwise, what? I mean, I don't know. I don't know why we would say this system is broken and it's not working. Well, let's get back in power and then use it again to try to hold them accountable. Well, why don't we fix the system? I mean, we can do two things at once, I guess. But to me, the priority is fixing the system.
I think you need both.
Don't you fix the system by rooting out the corruption?
I think it has to be both. Yeah.
Well, if we have power, that's enough to fix the system. I don't know why I need to go after Donald Trump criminally to fix the system. I don't know what that does to fix my political.
Yeah, but the thing is, if they get back into power again later, right? I mean, they can effectively just deny the existence of the system. They're almost doing that already, right?
Yeah.
Yes, that's
always an issue.
That's part of the fixing the system so that those people can get back power.
Sure,
make
but
DC a state.
I think
make Puerto Rico a state. Make it so that there's more proportional representation in Congress. Make it so that voting rights are more protected. Make it so that gerrymandering is harder to do and they can't do it the way they've been doing. These are all things that are fixing the system that have nothing to do with prosecuting people. So I don't know why I need to prosecute people to do those things. And if it's going to cost me political will to go prosecute those people and I have to give up any of those things I just described, I don't want to do it. I want to do those things.
That case, I get what you mean for sure, 100%.
Yeah.
But I think if you're fixing things so that this can't happen again, it would necessitate the last thing was wrong. Therefore, to reinforce the fact that you do actually believe the last thing was wrong, I think those people you need to also prioritize making sure those people face consequences for what they did.
The way you say that last thing was wrong was by electing a government that fixes it. I agree with you that prosecuting those people reinforces that, but the decisions no longer exist in court. Court is not what makes these decisions. The elections right now are all that matters. You make your decisions based on the elections. When the elections happen where we can fix the system, great. Guess what? These crimes, we all know about them. The evidence exists. We can come back later and get them. Doesn't need to be right now.
Well, that's what they thought.
I'll make a different argument then, actually, in that case. Elections happen, right? Elections will be for your legislative and your executive. Different people can focus on different things. The legislature focus on fixing the system, making the laws. The executive can go after these people for crimes, and whatever is the point of the attorney general, and then that.
If there is no political If there's no like political capital we need to spend to do that, that would impact the things that the legislature needs to change. That's fine. I wouldn't like. I'm not going to fight it. It's just it's a thing where it's like if I had to pick one, it's sure as fuck.
Yeah, if you pick one, for sure, I agree with you actually.
Yeah,
but I think it's
okay. But like, after World War II, shouldn't do you think they had to spend capital to try like the war criminals and the Nazis and the Japanese?
No. There was no political capital expended to do that. There was universal hatred of those people. There was not 51% of there was not 50% of the European population going, actually, maybe we should cut these guys a break. Right now in America, we are dealing with
this is a bit of a tangent, but Kathy, you're kind of wrong in one way.
Yeah.
Especially in the European context with the prosecutions of the Nazis, right? In Germany and Austria and Italy, the people that supported them, they didn't just change their minds, they just went quiet. But they were simmering. And they caused a lot of the far-right nutters that we have today, was because they just never went away. They just had not only their own children, but they also passed on these messages clandestinely. Right. And there were also supporters of Nazis in Belgium, for example. I think it was 40,000 Flems ended up either supporting or working with the Nazis in a tiny country. Of course, in France, you had people that welcomed Hitler, and they afterwards will have... I kind of thought it was next week. I think
he thought it was next week.
Anyway. There was collateral. They did cost collateral. That's my sum up my point.
I understand. I understand what you're saying there in that sense of like that. I just mean in the sense the people that ran those trials did not have to suffer any political capital. The people that ran those trials were the Allied powers. They were not Germany or Italy or any of that. It was Great Britain, France, Soviet Union, and America. And then maybe there was a little bit in France. And there were certainly Nazi sympathizers and all those. But guess what? All of those people that did those trials, like, I'm sorry, it's not like it was like, well, if we do this, fuck, we can't actually rebuild parts of Europe. We can't actually build these alliances to help protect the future. No, they were like, this is fine. Just fucking do it.
Again,
like,
I disagree. Okay. I disagree because after the First World War, that was part of the problem, is that they didn't pay attention to the pulse of opinions in Germany. So there was a real risk by running the Nuremberg trials that they were going to lose the Germans again and push them again towards an extreme.
I mean, I guess I don't know. Like, to me, like I guess I hear you on that, but in my mind, I don't. The issue is that you're talking about a defeated power versus like essentially trying to avoid a civil war. Here, it's like we've already won, and if the Germans go extreme again, we already have all of our military here. We already control everything. If the Germans get angry, I don't like. I hear what you're saying, and fair enough. There is a political question there that I'm not giving enough deference. I'm just saying I don't think it's relatable in a way to what we're talking about. Where like, if the Democrats are in power, the issue is that the Democrats are in power. They need to fix that system because there is a real chance that the Republicans could come in and change everything back and fuck them again. I do not think that chance existed in Germany at the time of the Nuremberg trials. It did not. We would have killed all of the Germans before we let that happen.
I disagree that it's a bit incomparable, but I disagree that it was so clear cut in Europe as to how it was done. But on the other hand, it's still quite different. It's still quite a different system. So I'll give you that you can't just say, well, they expended political capital. Why can't the Dems when they're in power again? But I would say this, that it doesn't really matter what the system is. Especially in a country, I mean, I'm guessing the US isn't going to have proportional representation, and that would lead to a lot of changes. But if you're not going to have that, and I understand why you wouldn't have that, then you've got effectively a two-party system. And if you have a two-party system, the health of the system is contingent on both of those parties being reasonable and well-intended parties. And the main problem with the Republicans, right, is they're disingenuous. They're not interested in the health of America. They're interested in their own pockets. They're interested in their own power for the sake of power and nothing else. They'll dress it up in any way they want to, but it's putting lipstick on a pig. And the only way to sort this out is by sorting out the Republican Party itself. And the way you do that is partly to do with these strategies, that you make it too costly for them to continue as they do. And they go back to the people. I would love to see an America where Connor was a Republican, right? And we could, and Americans could debate the real meaningful stuff that's affecting them. I find it tragic and sad that you don't have this kind of system. And the only way is by making a Republican Party that would accept someone like Connor, because he should be there, right? He should feel home in the Republicans. He's been pushed out by these extremists. So if you don't fix that, you can't really fix the system in its entirety if you don't fix it. And the only way to do that is by really going hard on the Republicans in power in a fair way and making it clear that it's fair, making it clear that there's legitimate crimes that have already been committed, right? But I think it should be the priority. If it's either or, I would go after that.
I understand your position. I do not agree. I do not agree with this position at all. Okay, here's the deal. If we go like. This is on Destiny too. I disagree. I think Destiny has a very bad take that he's been putting out there that really does not contribute very well to the conversation about this. Destiny has come out at many times, and I understand why he's saying it, and he's not entirely wrong in it. It just it creates a bad understanding of how this process needs to work and change. He's like, well, the Republicans control the whole government. They have all the votes. They can do whatever they want. He is right. In the current situation, that is true. However, this is an incredibly difficult position for a political party to get into. Now, the reason they were able to get here is from decades of destroying the system and making it so that they can have this kind of power, implement this kind of power, and then use it to their advantage. I'm saying we come in and we make a system where this strategy does not work. All right. You guys are like, well, they could all just lie to themselves, blah, blah, blah. It's like, no. If we make it where gerrymandering is no longer possible in the way that they do it, okay, they will have less seats in Congress. If we make it where there is DC and there is Puerto Rico as a state, they no longer have the same power in the Senate. If we make it where we change the rules on the Supreme Court, they can no longer hold power there as long as they do. And maybe there are ways around it in the future, and we need to be on the lookout and try to prevent those things. However, the issue is that let's say nobody gets prosecuted. Let's say everybody gets out and there's nobody that goes to jail for this, but we change the system anyway. Trump and the current Republicans would not be able to exert power in the way that they are right now because they would not be popular enough in the voters that they need. The districts that exist would no longer vote for them in the same way. So they could keep claiming all this shit, but they would never get more than 40% of the vote, and they would stay as a relegated minority power while the Democrats are staying in power. And that whole time they can bitch, moan, and complain and say how unfair everything is, but they don't have any power to do anything about it. So I don't give a shit if they're in jail or not in jail, because guess what? Everybody that's holding power and is in power and for the foreseeable future will have power is doing it in a way that I like. Now, at that point, 2 years after that, statute of limitations haven't run, go fucking start charging people. I don't care. But it's to me, the thing is like, if we prosecute those people, guess what? Smarter, younger, better people than the people who are in power right now are watching, will use the same tactics and will succeed. It happens in every political system in which you have a gigantic amount of instability like this. Things go wrong, people right the ship, don't make any changes, and then like 20, 30 years later, someone shows up, does it the right way, quote unquote, and destroys everything for their own benefit. So I do not care about prosecuting them compared to fixing the system so that this cannot happen again.
I mean, I think you can appreciate, but I don't. None of these things to me appear black and white, and there's risk in both scenarios. Like if you had to really choose between these two strategies of basically restoring some kind of order to the American democratic system, because there isn't any order right now, then both have their risks. The risk in your case is what happens if Republicans win, because if they win and you're under the same culture, they're going to say all that stuff is illegitimate. We don't care about Puerto Rico. It's not really a legitimate state, so we're going to ignore that anyway. And they would just call everything illegitimate and redefine the system in their form, right? So, I mean, in the end, the system's only as good as the people that recognize it.
If that happens, then they are correct. To be clear, if we do all of that and the American people still say we want that, then you know what? The Republicans are basically correct. Because the American people are saying, yes, we understand that you tried to fix the system and all that. We actually don't give a shit. We want Republicans in power to do this stuff. And at that point, welcome to democracy. That's how it goes. What I'm saying is, there is a huge aspect of this. And I agree with you that prosecuting them is a huge part of it. Prosecuting them is important as part of an education of the American people of why these things are wrong and why the change needs to happen. I agree. But well, yes. But I think that the prosecution serves the fixing of the system. The fixing of the system does not serve the prosecution. The prosecution should be done so people understand what was wrong and say, wow, that sucks. We shouldn't vote for those people, and we should support this new system that prevents those people from coming back. I agree with that. That is a great argument for why we should prosecute those people. However, again, I want us to have that system as our priority to fix, to get done, because that way, if the prosecutions don't happen, at the very least, the people that right now are in power are not going to get back in power in their lives. It's going to take the next couple generations before people can figure out how to undo the positive changes made to get back into power. And hopefully, dear God, we can get some people that have the foresight to preempt some of that and try to prevent it. Right?
Can I cut in?
Yeah.
So do you think like there's any analog with this to like after the Civil War and Reformation? I'm not so familiar with the history there, but maybe you are. Didn't they try to like reform the system, but didn't actually enforce many of those reforms?
Yeah.
So in the end, the system got perpetuated. The old one got perpetuated, and you got the negative future. So I think the prosecutions and stuff like that aren't in spite of changing the system, but they are required, absolutely required, to actually change the system, because without enforcement, you just leave like a paper system that no one follows.
Well, one second. If we never prosecuted them, but Democrats were able to win for the next 60 years and maintain,
you're not going to win.
No. This is a hypothetical. If that happens, okay, and that, like, what I'm saying is like, in that scenario, I'm like, great, that I'm fine with that. If the scenario is we prosecute all of the Republicans, but we don't change our current system for the next 60 years, I would consider that a failure, right? That's kind of where I'm coming from. Is like, it's just like
I think we all agree that like I think what the disconnect is like you would be fine, Kafka, if only the change in system happening. I think Reasonriffs and DRT, and like I put in a little bit of input or a little earlier, like I think that it's also like just as important, or that it would serve for not, or like even if you're right that like the system would exist and those people would be not allowed in power, that it would still be necessary to at the very least to show, as in like even just to make an example of, as like of those people, that would be necessary to show that you really do mean it and that it really does matter, or stuff like that.
I think Kafka is presupposing. Sorry, I think you're presupposing that if you change the system, you're going to win for 60 years. Like, I think if you say that, if that's your hypothetical, of course I can't argue about this, but I can give you the same hypothetical. If you prosecute Trump and everyone else and you win for 60 years, are you against this strategy if you're going to win for 60 years with that?
Yes, I would. I would say I would not support that strategy, because it does not fix the problems at the root of our system, and it allows 60 years from now for it to happen again. And I do not want it to happen again in the same way that it did now. I do not think
I can say the same thing about yours. I can say about the same your hypothetical. Okay, we had the system for 60 years. We won like for 60 years, but because we didn't give an example of how you enforce the system in 60 years, the bad guys will just roll over again, and no one will be the wiser.
Yeah, but you know what? I would say that the difference there is that I would prefer a system in which has progress, tries to actually improve and fix the problems that we have. And if the people down the line cannot maintain that, it is on them to do it. And if we say, oh, we're going to prosecute them and then like whatever, it's the Civil War again. It's just saying, oh, we just fixed our problems right now. And, after that, whatever, I hope someone else can fix the problems that we have clearly identified, clearly understand our problem. But we're saying, you know what, actually, even though it sucked and we, almost everything went to shit, we got these guys. And if it just works out for the next 60 years, we'll be okay. And you know why I don't like that and why I don't want that? Because the Democrats held the Congress for like so much of the 20th century. We held the Congress from, like, you can go look at it. We held it for like, I don't even remember, it was like 60 or 70 years. There was just like an overwhelming dominance of the Democrats in Congress. They could have made so many updates and changes and things that would have made this country resilient to what we're going through right now, and they did not do it. And I do not want us to repeat that again. It has happened before. It should not happen again. We should have a culture of, we need to update our government. We need to make sure our government is working. That is what we need to do. And guess what? If that means we have to let some people go that should go to jail, I will accept that. I don't want it to happen. But I would accept that. That is a fair compromise.
Okay, but there's a really good analogy here. There's a very clear analogy I just want to give here of this discussion, right? In terms of the 60 years of, frankly, negligence of making a more watertight system, which I entirely agree with. These are preventative measures, right? So it's like trying to prevent yourself from getting cancer. The problem is now that the body of the US democracy, it has a tumor, right? So there's no good now correcting the preventative measures while the tumor's still there. So you need both of those measures, right, to get a healthy democracy again. You need to find
no judge will make a decision that gets the tumor out. You cannot do that. An election is what removes the tumor, not the judge. Okay, yeah, the judge is chemotherapy to make sure it doesn't come back. I'll grant you that. That's a great analogy, but it is not removing the cancer. I agree with all that. That is a very good analogy.
Reducing its size.
I think in this analogy, like you can't ever get rid of the cancer. It could still always come back. In this analogy,
well,
right?
I guess that's but okay. It's about
hold on. Yeah. A judge could a judge could make the cancer go away and not come back ever.
If he walked in, if a judge gets enough training time at a gun range, he could. But I mean,
don't encourage destiny.
I'd say that.
But more seriously, I mean, Kafka made also a really, really important point about the risk of going through the legal methodology, and that's you go after Trump, an old frail man who can't remember which room is which. And then there's these young guns out there that they're charismatic, and we've got them in all of our countries, by the way. Sadly, these charismatic muggers, they do exist, and then it just leaves a void and a vacuum for them to inhabit, and that's a real risk. So I think in terms of all these, I mean, in the end, it's not. I think it should be a composite of the two strategies, right? And really cleverly chosen corrections to the system. But at the same time, you are going to need to create a level of deterrence and take seriously. I really felt under the Biden presidency, one of his mistakes was that January 6th was not seen as, a real insurrection against the US system. And it just wasn't treated with the seriousness. And I know why he did that. He tried to appear impartial, but it just didn't work, sadly. And we can see that now, right?
I'll extend an olive branch on this. I'll say this. I think that it would be unacceptable if the biggest players did not face charges. I would find that to be maybe not a total failure, but some level of failure. I think that my issue is that, and if I'm attributing this to y'all too much, tell me. But I feel like a lot of these discussions around holding people accountable, blah blah blah, is like we need to fucking get in there, all of them, just bring them all in. We're gonna just batch them all together and just right. Like to me,
that's
if it was like,
idea. Yeah.
I know, but what I'm just saying is like it's this thing where it's like to me, it's like. I feel like there are definitely people that like should not escape justice, and if they did, it is a failure to some degree. And if we do have those kinds of failures, I would be disappointed. However, it's kind of a thing where it's like I don't want us to get caught. I don't want us to get addicted and caught in this like sense of righteous vengeance when those crimes happened, the damage happened, and they are not going to be corrected in a courtroom. I think it is fine to use them as examples. I think it's fine to bring people in for justice when we can, but it's a thing that and this is probably just my lawyer bias, a courtroom rarely ever will give you a satisfactory resolution. It is so difficult to get that in a courtroom in any setting. And so to me, I think there are externalities of these court cases, especially for very large figures, that need to happen. I agree with you. But as far as we're asking so much from those court opinions, from the people observing them and wanting to be able to, and hoping that they get what they need to out of them so that then the proper changes happen. Right. Whereas for me, it's let's get the ones we can, but fuck me. I think to me, it's like, if we get Stephen Miller, if we get Donald Trump, if we get JD Vance, if we get Bessent, great. That rocks. If Mitch McConnell dies without ever seeing the inside of a jail, of courthouse or of a jail, okay, fine, whatever. Let him go.
I think it might have been, I might have shortcutted it way back at the start by saying legislature can do their job, the executive can do their job, but also I think I agree with you 100%. Don't it doesn't have to be everyone, but I think it depends also what you go with. I would be fine if like what you just said, Trump, Miller, whoever else, Vance, Christie, I might add to your list that I don't think you said, but certain people, as long as you go after them, that's fine. If certain
Of course, like we
senators
didn't
don't go, like
prosecute all the
that's fine,
Nazis.
whatever. But also, like not even like from the courtroom, like certain people should be impeached, which would also kind of goes against my argument of like the legislature should focus on doing things versus whatever. But like certain people should be like removed from government, and like federal people should be like fired, like people who are joining ICE because they're fucking whatever. Like those fuckers should just be like fired, like shit like that. But I think I think it's a little bit over-indexed. I think we're not going that extreme. But
I think I read too much into it just because like I know how intoxicating vengeance is and dreaming about it and stuff like that, but like that is like that is a suicide into populism that we would do. It is something we cannot let happen.
I agree.
Where we so hard push back in the other direction that we get caught
because
up, start doing prescriptions and stuff
like that. The obvious risk, and like what you're saying, like it's hard for a courtroom to be give you a satisfactory answer. The obvious risk, right, is that suddenly people start getting off, right? That you did arrest these people and they are put to trial and then they get off. That's the obvious risk. That's why, like for me personally, like when I'm proposing, like let the executive start going after people. It's like make sure like you have like the right attorney general who knows what they're doing, and make sure whoever's being like make it fucking Jack Smith or whatever again, and like make sure that whoever they're pressing charges against is like these are airtight cases.
Well, no, but also to be clear, Dirt, you would agree with me that we should not make any charges against people currently in power or something like that if we take power back until we fix the Supreme Court. Otherwise, it will not matter, right? You agree with me there, like that.
Sure. But exactly,
probably. So I think it's kind of it doesn't really. Maybe the whole argument doesn't matter because Trump will pardon everyone before he goes. But I just want to. I don't know. Do you have an opinion if like the problem with the Civil War, the Reformation, was the enforcement or the system after?
Because the biggest issue was that the federal government did not properly enforce it afterwards. There were things they wanted to do. They did not properly. They could have done better, but I mean, like the number one reason why the Reconstruction, like quote unquote, failed was because the federal government just did not enforce what it said it was going to.
Wait a minute.
That's my whole thing that I only to finish. I think that's my only thing that you need the enforcement. Otherwise, the system won't continue. You can set up a nice system, but if you don't enforce it, it just won't continue. So I agree with everything else, and of course it has to be selective because even with Imperial Japan and with Nazi Germany, after the Allies had complete control, they didn't go after everyone. They just selectively.
Where's Connor? Are we rescheduling?
Took their targets. We're figuring it out. Even the Emperor of Japan wasn't deposed because they figured that it will be too much of a disruption. So of course I agree. I'm not looking for revenge. I'm looking for a way to stop the system from perpetuating itself, the bad system.
No, that's totally fair.
There's also a point there of forgiveness of people lower down the ranks during the World War II, and I think that's applicable here. And that dispels this notion of victimhood of some kind of witch hunt. So it's not just the people you go after, it's the people that you leave and say, okay, the past is the past now. But just going back to the American Civil War, and it's not a period of history I've really formally studied or read in huge depth. But from what I understand, that the Electoral College was set up after the Civil War and was biased towards Southern states as a compromise towards the Southern states. This is true, right?
Yes, to some degree, yeah.
So the system was never really that ideal to start with, and part of the problem we have now with who's being elected is because of this poor weighting towards the Southern states. So that maybe we could learn from history here that
for sure,
instead of compromising in that regards with the system, not about who you go after, but the structural changes, which is what you're arguing for, that there needs to be no compromise on the systemic corrections.
Right. That might actually be a good way to phrase it. I think there should be no compromise in the systemic corrections. I could be okay with some compromise on the prosecutorial stuff. Not enough where the system wouldn't be properly enforced. However, to me, again, like it's like if McConnell gets off, if Marjorie Taylor Greene never goes to jail, okay, sure, whatever, fucking, if we don't send Thomas and Alito to jail, that's fine. Get them the fuck off the bench, okay? Get them the fuck out of there. and then get the people that we can, make a huge fucking example out of them, right? Make a ton of shit to show how evil and bad they are, right? Get that great propaganda. But yeah, to me, if it was like, well, okay, we did all that, we got Donald Trump, so like, I don't know, let's give this other state something, or like, let's give the MAGA people something. Like, no, fuck them. Like, sorry, they are not interested in giving us anything. They were
exactly
about to let
on the
people
system
starve to death to take away healthcare. So no, I'm sorry, no, I'm uninterested in giving them a bone.
Exactly. I think on that front, there needs to be no compromise. But I would say, I mean, almost not contradicting my previous point, but just seeing the balance in terms of the judicial path here, that a lot of conflicts, when they're resolved, involve a hell of a lot of forgiveness. That's also a critical ingredient. And it's a bit like a conflict where you have multiple flanks, right? Okay. You have multiple fronts, and you need to coordinate in which front you push hardest, but also the limits of how hard you push on those fronts. And I think there are going to be multiple fronts to correct the system, but you have to be careful from not pushing on. Some fronts need to be limited in terms of how hard you push and what methods you use when you push. So I think there needs to be a lot of forgiveness as well for the lower ranks.
Especially, I mean, obviously as a Christian, I'm very big on forgiveness. I totally agree. There needs to be grace and victory, all that stuff. However, forgiveness is not the same thing as meaning that everything goes back to a status quo. People need to understand that. Okay. One of the problems in the Civil War that happened was after the Civil War, okay, we have all these fucking traitors in our country, okay? And guess what? They're here, they're going to stay, whatever. We're not going to kill them. They can keep living here, that's fine. But what we don't need is for Congress to come in and pass a fucking bill that says, you know what? We're just going to make it where all these traitors, it's fine. They can hold public office. They can do things. It's okay. We're not going to actually take away their ability to participate in government. Fuck that. If you're a traitor, if you did things that are going to destroy this country, that undermine this country, things like that, you don't get to participate in that way. Sorry, but not sorry. All right. We will forgive you. And by forgive you, that means that we're not going to, make you take a long walk off a short pier. But guess what? That means that you have lost the public trust. You're not allowed anywhere near positions of power anymore. Okay, that's it.
Okay, that's the balance. Yeah. For the higher ranks, that's the kind of balance you'd expect. Possibly with them admitting.
I'm sorry. Anybody that is part of this administration officially as a political figure, if they were a part of the MAGA administration, it should not be forgotten, and it should be held against them severely. Whether legally or socially, it should be held against them severely. Every single Republican that did not sign to let the Epstein files get released should suffer for that. All right? Sure. They should not be able to be a political figure after that vote. It is unacceptable that happened. Okay? And so that is the kind of thing where I will forgive them in the sense that, yeah, sure, you get to keep being an American. I will not forgive them in the sense that we should not make overtures to be like, I guess we got to reach across the aisle with these guys. Fuck that. Those people don't deserve us to reach out to them. I'm okay with that. Yeah.
That's a good segue to another question I had, which is, what happens if the Dems get back in, but they barely hold the House of Representatives, or not at all? That can happen, right? And the Senate is like on a knife edge, and they don't really have, the kind of power that they really need to exert these changes. I mean, it's almost stalemate, right? And that could,
if that happens, then God help us. I mean, we get back to a situation of like, okay, like we are at a point where honestly, the Democrats need to start questioning their platform. If all of this can happen and it's still on a knife edge, then guess what? The Democrats need to start jettisoning parts of their platform that do not have anything to do with us taking power and reforming the system in a better way. Like at this point, it's like, yes, guess what? The Democratic Party will no longer be the Democratic Party that you know. Sorry, all of this progressive shit, apparently it is truly toxic, because if we continue with this, the other side is going to continue to win. And right now, I'm sorry, is not the time to fight for it. That's just the truth.
There's a Republican elephant in this room, and that's Fox and the right-wing media in America, which makes it incredibly difficult to control the narrative, to how your rhetoric is framed. I mean, there's this huge bias against Democrats to start off with because of that. And now you have Twitter, which is effectively, Fox Part 2.
You ready?
In terms of the effect.
I'm about to tell you how to fix that problem. It's not hard.
I would love to hear it. Okay.
It's great. Here's this thing. Okay, there is the freedom of the press, right? guess what? We write an amendment to the Constitution that says the press, all right, in some language we say press is whenever you were just reporting facts on the ground. Anything after that is not the press. It is commercial speech. And in America, commercial speech is heavily regulated. And you know why it's commercial speech? It's because these fuckers are saying it to make goddamn money. So guess what? It's not that they're informing the public. They have an interest in making money, and we should hold them liable as though it's any other form of commercial speech. So guess what? Now what we're going to do is we're going to create a licensing system where if you want to be a newspaper, if you want to say the news, if you want to be a streamer that goes online and listens to JDAMs hit fucking Israel, you're going to go in and you're going to say, guess what? Now those things are all liable. And yet then because you have that license, now the public can come in and say, hey, that guy lied. That's all the standing I need. I'm going to sue him for fucking malpractice of news reporting, okay? And those people now have to have insurance against that kind of malpractice. They have to be careful with what they say whenever they're doing editorializing. And then whenever Fox News goes off and pops off like that, it's not just Dominion showing up and making all this money. Everybody gets to show up. Everybody gets to go, actually, that was a fucking lie. That was a fucking lie. That was a fucking lie. And we make it too expensive to be lying pieces of shit on the news. That's what we do. Liability solves that problem.
The media should fall under the education department, right? It's a form of education for adults and for it should be taken that seriously. But the thing is,
I disagree. The media is a business. The news is facts on the ground. If you want to say the news,
I mean the news, but I mean
the press is. If you want to put that education, that's fine. You guys figure that out. But anything outside of facts on the ground is not any kind of education. It is
no. That's so you misunderstood. Sorry, but I'm
fine.
saying because there's a kind of this overlap, right? Which is a murky overlap, but in a sense, in itself, is some freedom of speech because then these corporate entities, right, that seek money in the name of destroying the US, can say, hey, but now we're having the freedom of our speech mitigated. And I mean, ideally, what you've just described would happen, but then there's also a question of discussing what a fact is. And of course, there's a reframing of facts to make them sound different to what they
Courts of law deal with that every single day. You have issues of fact, take it to court, figure it out there. That's what literally we have courts for. I understand what you're saying. I don't disagree, but that's also why
I'm still manning your argument a bit. But
but to be clear, I'm not saying the government comes in and says what facts are. I'm saying the people would sue, individuals would sue a news organization, take them to court. The court would say, great, let's get a jury in here. You present each side. Is this a fact? Is it not a fact? What does this jury say? The jury goes, yeah, we don't think it's a fact. Fuck that. And they go, great, news organization, you got to pay this guy, right? Because I don't want the government to say what a fact is. I want the people to do it. And that's what the court's there for. Go ahead.
Okay, guys, thanks for the talk. I'm going to jump out.
Thanks for your note, JT.
Yeah.
Hey, buddy.
Thanks. Yeah.
Wow.
I mean, I've still got time, so if you want to continue talking through this stuff, then
keep fighting. This is our new eCourt episode for today.
Yeah, I didn't realize we disagree so much.
Reasonriffs
great.
On do we execute all Republicans with the firing squad, or do we cuck out and just legislate? That's not the debate.
Right.
I mean, not that's a false dichotomy between our 2 points or anything, but
that's why.
Yeah,
but
I mean, but no, I hear you. I hear you about the true issue of the American media, and that is part of the system that needs to be
not just the American media. I say this because again, it's mimicked all around the Western world, where we actually, converse and try and come to some kind of reasonable position. I mean, of course, even in dictatorships, they have to care because of falling off roofs and stuff about public opinion to an extent, and you can see, of course, they still manipulate public opinion because it matters. But in democracies, of course, it's all that more important, and for that reason, it's been all that more of a focus in terms of entities who want lots of power and lots of money. I don't think that's
thanks for the follow.
That kind of bias towards
Are we still waiting on Connor?
Trying to gain power and
no.
This right-wing trajectory of a lot of media in the West, because people with a lot of money want to fund those systems, because on average they're going to want to keep their money, which is probably on average what all of us would do if we had that money. So it's not that I'm blaming these people. It's something that hasn't really been thought about in terms of a corrective measure in the system to keep facts and to keep information as unbiased as possible. And I just think that facts and information and arguments should be treated with the same value as education in schools. I think it's playing a very similar role in our society. It teaches people how to argue, how to reason. And if it's tainted to such a degree that you've got all the possible fallacies that you can imagine, all the possible objections that you'd see in a court, but there's no objection, there's no correction, and they're just allowed to use those fallacious ways of reasoning, you're teaching people fallacious ways of thinking, right? Like through arguments, through association, all this kind of stuff. And I just see it in all of our democracies. I think it's one of the biggest failures that is currently the case. And correcting that in theory is, as you describe it, in practice, I think it's going to be incredibly hard.
I want to be clear. I definitely agree with you there. Just like I know that I'm saying it in like these sound bites that can like be understood, but like there is so much that has to go into it, and it cannot just be. There is no turn the switch and now the fascism is gone. I agree with you. There is,
and the Constitution will be used against you. They're going to use freedom of speech against you all the way.
That's what I'm saying.
Huge political collateral involved in
all
of that, right?
I agree, and it's that's why I'm saying, like, for me, that's where I would spend it. Those are that foundation is where I spend it.
That's the systemic kind of change that you. I mean, I agree. I think it's a huge. It should be a massive goal.
Because here's the other thing that, like, and this is something that, like, I hear this a lot from non-lawyers about the kind of holding people accountable thing. Like, we have statutes of limitations for a reason, so that you don't have to rush into things, right? And like, a lot of the times it's 2, 4, 6 more years that we have to go after these people, and the investigation that's going to go on is going to take long enough that it's going to happen years later anyways, right? Unless we're talking about some kind of Nuremberg trial thing. And so to me, it's like, it truly is like, you're going to do both at the same time, no matter what, right? However, a lot of the time, same with this, like, being careful of vengeance, rushing into court, trying to get there as soon as possible so we can convict him as soon as possible. I think there's a really strong argument for why you would do that with, like, Trump after the last term. I understand why you would want to do it as fast as possible, all those things. And I don't necessarily disagree with them. However, like, I don't think that we're going to have as clear of a shot for a lot of these guys necessarily, as far as like someone admitting on tape that they committed a crime, like the way Trump did in that case, where like that should have been acted on way sooner.
Mm-hmm.
But like, yeah, to me, it's a thing where, like, it might just be my bias of like, they're there, these people aren't going anywhere, their crimes aren't going anywhere. If we are in power, if we can make it where we stay in power, we have all the time in the world to prosecute them. But I think that, like, I am sympathetic to the idea that, like, if we just let them languish and just sit there, that does send a message to a lot of people, like, was it even that big of a deal? Like, if you guys aren't chasing them down, then why do I care?
I mean, here's a hot take. I think if it was just going after Trump in isolation, I don't know if that would be worth it. You need the people around him, because then the people around him, or people that want to be like the people around him, would think, well, we can get away with it so long as we're not the ones at the front. Because Trump is a bit of a useful idiot for those people, right? So I think it's not all or nothing, and it's definitely not going after an awful lot of people who are guilty of damaging American democracy, because that's the forgiveness part, lower down the ranks. But you do need to go after his closest circle, because it's those people that are the most dangerous. You know, they can find another Trump, but that involves a level of intelligence, and that's a warning to people with a level of intelligence and who are malicious. Don't screw around with this. You know, and it also then is a sign that American democracy still exists and still works by sending that message. So I think it's important the message is sent, but I think, you know, Trump is just a tip of a very nasty iceberg, right? And if you don't go after the whole thing, that it's possibly, then it's worth, if it really is not, you know, if you really don't get the power in the Senate and the House, and you really think it's not possible in terms of the evidence available that beyond reasonable doubt that they can prosecute those people, then they really do have to question whether it's worth it whatsoever, and then focus on systemic change. But it's a really a question of what is feasible with the power that you end up getting. But hopefully this change won't only just take place in the States, it will also take place in Europe. And at the moment, if you see the political discourse in the UK, I mean, I mainly read UK news, sometimes Dutch and sometimes German, more German than Dutch. Because I don't know if you know, I speak Dutch and German to a reasonable degree, but I'm more comfortable with English. And it's a catastrophic situation politically in the UK at the moment. And there's a lot of responsible parties. And again, I think this is another thing that is applicable in the US. The Democrats, when I look through these lists of things I was going to bring up today, and if anyone's listening, by the way, I'm going to be debating Connor next week. We mix up our dates.
Surely, this time
and
for
it
real.
will happen, hopefully so, because the Thursdays for me is a little bit more difficult, but we'll find a way. But if I really looked through a lot of failures on the part of the Democrats that led to the conception of MAGA. And yeah, I see very similar things happening, for example, in the UK. And it's also this prosecution of people with direct financial links to Russia and who have been compromised. It's evident, and it could actually be prosecuted, and they don't bother with it. There's an article I wrote in the Pragmatic Papers about the links of neo-Nazis to Russia, and it goes back to the 80s, and even earlier in some cases. But in the 80s, Putin himself was likely involved in forming those connections in West Germany and East Germany. So it's been going on for so long, and ignoring that's also the responsibility of the center-left in our countries. In the meantime, in the UK, you have a situation where we have a Labour government with a massive majority. They can do an awful lot. They're generally doing a lot of the wrong things, but part of the problem is that the UK's got a fiscal problem left by the Conservatives, to be fair to them, but no one else is being fair to them on that front. But then what they are doing isn't probably the right priority. In the meantime, Starmer, before he was elected, had gone complete Stalin in the party and purged of anything that didn't follow within his view. So you had Jeremy Corbyn, the previous leader, who had basically overlooked anti-Semitism, and that was one of the reasons, as well as losing an election, was ousted as leader, or he resigned, but probably was pushed a little bit. I completely agree with that. But then he was ousted from the party because he refused to say that anti-Semitism was a massive problem in the Labour Party. And it isn't a massive problem, but any anti-Semitism is bad, but he said this. And he lost party membership. A lot of people have not lost their membership for a lot worse than this. So it was clearly ideological, because he's quite far left in the Labour Party, but he's loyal to the Labour Party. And his circle, most of them have remained in the Labour Party if they have been allowed, and continue to be loyal to the Labour Party. So they're not doing a Hassan here of saying, oh, they're all the same. They're not those types, right? They have some very, very left of socialist views, some of which I don't agree with, some of which I do. But nevertheless, they still toe the party line and effectively and stick to the Labour Party. And Starmer kicked all those people out. And now they're starting to form new parties. They're joining the Green Party. And now, if you look at polling, the Green Party in the UK is neck and neck with the Labour Party, right? And the reform is double both of them, right? This far right, the MAGA of MAGA, they're a really far right party. And so it doesn't really matter, well, it doesn't matter, but where we ever are in our own systems, it's also about where they're going, right? Sure. It's no good having, if we have power today, but we can clearly see we're going to lose it in 2 years, that's just as bad as not having it now. Unless it's, there's still some ways around it. And that's kind of the situation the UK is in. So from the outside, it looks, oh, well, they've got the Labour government. No, it's going in a very, very negative trajectory. And the media are also responsible for this, including those influencers on Twitter, but also the right-wing media. And the BBC is just so flaccid. And they get accused of being on the left, which they'll do anyway. So they should actually just be more moderate and try and fight against those who have the UK's interests not at heart. But this, again, goes often back to the media and the left being too weak when they have power.
I think that's it. The one dangerous thing about this conversation that we're in is it's a little too hopeful that we are going to obviously get out on the other side. And like, here's how, this is how I would do what I would do if I won. And I think that it can be a little scary to have those conversations because you don't want to hope and then be disappointed. But one of the reasons I like talking about them is because stuff you just brought up, where it's like, you have experiences, you know the history, you know political systems that I don't, and you can give me perspectives where it's like, I don't know if I'm necessarily changing my mind, but it's definitely like, okay, good. Yeah, like we need to have much understanding, as much planning ahead on this stuff, because what I don't want is for us to get in there, be flabbergasted that we even
Exactly.
won, and then just kind of go like, whatever works, right?
Exactly.
And
Exactly.
I wouldn't be able to stand something like that. And not to shit on Joe Biden too much, but there was a little bit of that in his administration where
Damn.
it's like, okay, like we just came out of the worst administration we've ever had. Like, what are we really going to do here to prevent that from happening again? It's like, we're just going to govern well, and it's like, okay,
Just say you
like,
think Merrick Garland's a cuck. Just say it. I mean, come
yeah.
on.
I mean, well, I mean, Biden is a cuck for putting Merrick Garland there. He should not.
Ooh.
I'll give you 3 lessons to learn from the UK system, right? Firstly, is they were clearly coming up to the election just going to win it with a massive majority, and yet they had the most stupid electoral promises. For example, not raising any income tax, right? Even though, and I was saying this before the election, that, well, this is really stupid. Labour won in 1997, stating they were going to increase income tax, and the fiscal situation in the UK is precarious. You know, debt does matter, not as much as some people might think, but in the UK situation, it's a really precarious situation. The state will need to raise some tax revenue, so they should never have made that promise. And they could see before the election that they were not that they didn't need to make that promise.
Are you saying
Maybe
in our election we should have Democrats should have like ran on increasing income taxes?
No, I'm not talking about the previous election. I'm talking about 2028. Let's say that Trump does what the Tories party did, and they've just lost so much popularity. It's a good chance of a global recession. If it doesn't come too early, I mean, if it came now, it'd screw up the midterms, but it'd be better for it to come in a few years and really screw up the election proper, right? And let's say that happens, and you're really like steamrolling into power, and it's kind of evident, and even, you know, a stone could win the election, right? It's effectively what happened, right? Stammer's not the most charismatic man. So this is one of the mistakes, was before the election promise is way too harsh. He could have left himself with a bit of ambiguity and stated, I'm leaving that ambiguity because I want to be flexible in power. He could turn it into a strength. I don't understand why politicians don't do that. It's like admitting that they don't know everything. You know, they're not omnipotent. The other thing was that they purged the Labour Party frankly the far left, but also the far left. I say they're not the Hassans. They're the ones who say, "Hey, I really support the Democrats." Like the previous election, like Walsh, right? So it's almost like a German word. So I pronounce it with a German way. He was saying, "Hey, I'm voting for Harris. You know, she's not great, but I'm going to vote for Harris." He sometimes sways a bit, but when it comes to the election, he votes the right way, right? So he should be considered part of the club, and people should listen to him. If you disagree with his views, get him onto debates, get him to argue. Don't just
the issue with that is not with other people.
He doesn't debate.
Walsh, but yeah.
yeah. Okay, in this case, right? But I'm just talking about people of his politic, right? And the Labour Party just shut them up completely and shut them off entirely. And my father is an acquaintance of Corbyn. I know he's a genuine man. He's not badly intended. He has been and continues to be a bit of a useful idiot sometimes for Russia, and I despise his politics for that. But he's not a badly intended person, and he was sticking by supporting the Labour Party. He should have been left as a member of the Labour Party. That's the main test. Will you vote for the chosen leader at the end, right? And then the other thing was just not preparing for power, right? And having a decent set of, and that's partly to do with the electoral promises, so it's kind of related to that point. But those 3 things, they're massive, and in the end, now we're looking at possibly getting some far right absolute nutcasing, worse than anything like Sunak. Don't know about Liz Truss, but worse than Sunak, and certainly worse than David Cameron. Was it worth having leadership, having Labour in for 4 years to have something even worse afterwards? And the same question must be asked. The 2028 election, there's a good chance the Dems can go into that with lots of momentum, with Trump really failing. Good chance that they have an opportunity to be really honest with the American electorate and say, this isn't going to be easy. We may have to actually raise some income taxes. Government spending needs to be maintained to a certain level because it maintains infrastructure and it maintains productivity and it's good for the economy. that's another aspect that left parties don't do enough, is they don't argue from the point of view of economics enough. There's too much vibe politics and caring for the fluffy bunny stuff, right? And all that kind of thing, which is important. But there's also economic arguments for that too. So frame it economically. The middle class listen to that stuff. They want the economic ship to stay afloat. They don't want that to sink, right? They listen and think in that language in terms of talking about maintaining a stable and healthy economy. So frame it in that way. But some of that will be about investment, and investment comes and state investment is very important. Look at infrastructure, look at the history, look at what Eisenhower did in the US history. It comes through tax revenue. And so tax shouldn't be a dirty word. And that's going to be difficult to frame. But if the Democrats are looking at that big majority, then they have that political collateral coming into that election to be honest with the electorate about that. And that's something difficult but doable. So I really hope this lessons learned from the UK situation. And they're quite practical. They can be implemented, right? What I've suggested, it's not airy-fairy. It's really, something that can be done.
Yeah. Well, and I think that's a good point to go out on. I definitely like it. I have to get back to work because I've been hiding from my boss.
Yeah,
so I'm going to get back to it.
I was gonna say, I got some due. I know Reason was also gave us 2 hours for this, so I don't want to keep you longer than you need to be.
Well, we kind of said. I mean, it's I mean, we should keep some powder dry for next week.
For sure.
Yeah. So I mean, there's my slides are prepared and everything. I mean, I've got it ready for next week, I guess. So if anyone's been listening, Connor wasn't able to make today, but we're looking at having the debate next week, and
it'll happen.
Just having
this
discussion. So
sorry to bait y'all, but no, I really got to get rolling. So great to talk to y'all. Love the discussion.
Thanks for coming.
Have a great weekend, everybody. Yeah, of course.
See you next time.
Yeah, and thanks for having me on, Zip. Yeah,
of course. Wait, Kafka. Wait, Reason, stay after Kafka goes for a second.
Bye.
Yeah, I'll stay on. Yeah,
all right,
cool,
Reason, real quick. Show for the pragmatic papers. Do it. Tell everybody to go on.
That's true. Okay, well, I mean, the last edition actually was one of the best I've seen. There was a really interesting article about the Chinese space projects and how they're not all just stuff on paper, that they're not just copying and stealing American designs, and it's something that we should be wary of. There was also I'm doing this off the top of my head, so forgive me, but there was also someone who
I ambushed you with that, but just while you're here, but
it's worth discussing. And there's the DDG Awards for political activism, and there's some really insanely hard work that I absolutely commend, because these people are standing up for our democracies and for real change. It's all easy enough to just sit back on Discord and chat about these things, but these people were out in the field doing the hard work. And they need to be recognized, and they were recognized. So I think that was really nice to see in the papers. So that was a good news story. Another good news story was my own article, which was on the far-right populist leadership being kicked out of power in the Netherlands, and whether there's any lessons that the US can learn and other democracies can learn from that about fighting populism. And I'll leave you to read that to see what the conclusion was. And looking forward, I'm writing an article partly based on looking at applications of game theory in politics, but also the looking at political psychology. So I'm just to clarify, I've got a degree in philosophy, and I've got a degree in physics and a master's in physics, and I'm doing a doctorate in the subject. But I have generally a broad range of interests. History was a big one, and still is. But I do try and read around other subjects. The borders between academia are quite arbitrary. So, but psychology, on the other hand, is a bit of my weakness. So I will try and read through this, and maybe I should talk to.
It'll come in a bit. So.
Yeah, but actually, in some respects, it can appear on the surface to contradict it. I mean, this is what I've kind of gone over today, that we do have to be careful about the psychology of feeding the psychology of victimhood of the populist side, because it feeds their narrative and actually can end up strengthening the narrative. So, I hope to write an article about that in Pragmatic Papers, and it's growing, and we're getting some excellent writers there. So it's always worth.
I was gonna say, I mentioned to Kafka a few months ago that I was considering writing an article after I had read Kamala Harris's book, 107 days, I was like, oh, I'll write an article about it because I was taking notes as I was reading and shit. I've still got my notes, but I never got to writing the article. But I said it a few weeks ago that I would. But after next week, the 20th, Kamala is coming to Miami for her book tour, and I'm going. So I was like, oh, I'll write the article after that, and I'll have it be about the book, plus about the book tour, plus, I don't know, whatever else I want to talk about Kamala in general. Basically, I think Kamala has a good chance in 2028. I think she's going to run for the nomination in 2028. I think she's got a good chance.
Oh, really? Really?
Some polls came out a few days ago that people were like putting on Twitter and shit. Currently, she's leading in like, like very way off polls, but like, we were polling. I think she had like 21%, 28%, and like she's leading compared to like Newsom and AOC and Buttigieg and whoever the fuck else they put on there, right?
Oh wow, that's interesting. I never would have thought. Okay.
And I think it makes there were like some analyses of like she's winning with particular coalitions that really matter. Like black voters really went for Kamala, which does actually matter a lot for our stuff. Like Joe Biden got the nomination because of black voters. I think shit like that. And also name recognition. Plus, she already ran a campaign. Plus, all the other reasons that people should have voted for her last time. She can rerun on the same shit and like But,
I mean, the only thing is she also lost the campaign, so that's tricky, right?
But then I would then, and I think she made a case sort of in her book, and like she doesn't like throw the blame exactly. Like she still says like it's on her like for the campaign. Like she could have done these things differently. Like she talks very candidly in the book about the mistakes she made and what things she could have done differently. But I think overall the impression I get from the book, and I think is pretty reasonable to believe, is that like the biggest failure of her campaign was simply that it was too short. She only had 107 days, and that was the biggest reason she lost. I'm kind of on that train a bit, and so I think if she had like a whole election cycle to campaign, she could win, I think.
Okay, I mean, we effectively agree on that, right?
Yeah.
That I mean, she actually I think was a decent candidate who just wasn't given the time, but nevertheless, just in terms of association, she is associated with losing that election. Do you not think that's a little bit risky? I mean, the polling.
I think it absolutely would play against her, but then, like you're saying, the polling, and then just making that case to the American people by saying like, we lost, but I would then go to like her speech after the election where she was like conceding. She said like, because one of her slogans throughout the campaign was like, when we fight, we win. She writes in her book about like how they had to like thread that needle where, okay, but we lost though, right? And her thing there, like the way that they did it, and like she's been on this since, was like, the fight's not over. So like, even if we are sit back, we're still going to win in the end. And I think there's a way to like kind of leverage that kind of message. Like, we lost once, but that's okay. We can win, and we're going to, and also I think she also has an advantage where she can literally run on, I told you guys this would happen and now it's happening. I don't know. It's a lot of different things that have kind of been floating in my head about, but I do think she has a really good chance. Like if I were to bet, I would put a fuck ton of money on Kamala. If I had to bet on one person over anybody else.
But on a personal level, or on just looking at their politics, not who has the best chance of winning, which potential candidate fits you the best?
It's me. Like, so that's the other thing, right? Like, right now, like the only real like contender, right, that is like putting themselves out there for like they're definitely gonna run is Gavin Newsom. I'm not sure. I'd have to look more into like, personal politics, like what exactly are their disagreements politically and stuff, to know. And that's the sort of thing that would come out in the primary. So like, I'm not like saying right now in the primary I'm gonna vote for Kamala. It would depend on what happens there and like what distinctions people make.
Do you not think it's a bit the other way around, that during a primary, I mean, people dress up their politics, and so it's a little harder to see it, but the best time to look at their politics is when they're not actually running, and then you get a more honest view of their positions. I feel like in these,
I think you're right, in many ways, but also I think that it doesn't mean like the primaries are like useless, right? Like it's still like if people are saying certain things in primaries, they kind of have to follow through, or else they are like told that they're, oh, you didn't follow through or whatever. And like that kind of happens. Like people will say like, oh, Biden promised like 15-hour minimum wage, and it's like, well, he tried. Like he didn't get it, but that wasn't on him. It was because Manchin said, "Oh, I wouldn't do it." Like shit like that, right? Like politicians will try shit that they campaigned on, and I do think that kind of follows. So I agree with what you're saying though. Like I would have to look at their history now, but I really like Kamala's record generally. So I would lean towards Kamala, just because I haven't looked into Gavin Newsom as much, and I don't know how true all the he's bad in California and he's whatever and shit like that is. No clue.
I mean, Harris seems like a very intelligent lady.
Yeah.
And the way they tried to frame her, I can't remember what she was talking about, coconut trees or something. And it was just one analogy. And if you look at the broader context of what she was saying, yeah, it was pretty.
Oh, the coconut thing.
Yeah, I forgot. I just
yeah, I
exactly.
think you just saw the coconut tree. Yeah, no, her like that's a good. It's like a funny meme, but like people will talk about Kamala like, oh, word salad, or like, oh, or like she's too rehearsed or like whatever. But like you can just look at what she says. She makes perfect sense. Like, yeah.
In the broader context, but you have to be careful that things are going to be taken out of context.
Yeah,
and
sure.
I forgot what our Bulgarian friend's name is, but he made a good point about this, that leaders need to be seen as fairly serious. There's one thing about having memes when you're out of power and it's not coming from you directly, and it's, you know,
that's like the big thing I think with Kamala that kind of was happening at the time of the elections. Like there's so many competing narratives about why Kamala lost. Like you'll have at the same time people going, oh, she was too serious, oh whatever, like she's too rehearsed, shit like that, while also getting the she laughs too much and she is silly because of the coconut thing and like, oh this, and I don't know. I mean, like you're right, like the perceptions matter, but also I think a lot of it is kind of manufactured in a way. And like just from reading the book, like she talks about specifically about some particular like manufactured shit that people just made up about her, and it's like, yeah, I mean, you're not wrong. People just made shit up about you, and that really affected the way people perceived her.
I mean, there's the manufactured stuff that's just randomly produced, and then there's the vulnerabilities you have that allow, you know, kind of an exaggeration of something. And those are two slightly different things. Of course, you want to mitigate the last one because you can actually control that depending on who your candidate is. But the first one, I mean, there's nothing you can do about that, right? And I think Harris was guilty. He experienced a lot of the first case. They just tried to look for anything. And I thought she was I felt that her campaign went through phases. The initial phase was the best. And I got the impression she was getting less advice and just spoke more from the heart. And then later on, she seemed more hesitant, like she was being told almost what would be best to say, and didn't seem quite as from, you know, speaking from the heart so much. But in either case, she didn't bring up much that she was a woman. And even though, okay, it's nice if you have a female president, it doesn't matter really in a way.
Yeah, I think she talks in her book about that. Like, Trump immediately tried to make it, like he said, I forget exactly what it was, but like very close to near the beginning of the book. For context, the book starts like it's like each chapter is just this day, and it'll be like, you know, it was through with 107 days. It's not every single day, but it's kind of laid out like that. It's very, very near the beginning, close to the start of her campaign. Is like Trump said this about you being black, or like I think it was that Trump like accused/joked of like, you know, what it'll do, right? That she wasn't actually black or something. And then she had like an advisor telling her like, oh, you need to respond, you need to be like, I am black, and this is your history, and like you grew up in a black community, shit like that. And she said, why the fuck would I do that? That's not what my campaign's about. I'm not gonna make it about my race, right?
Exactly.
And so it was very,
I trust.
Yeah.
That's exactly the thing. I felt that. I mean, this was, you know, I mean, speculative, but I got the impression I trusted her far more than the people advising her, and I found that a bit of a shame. And often, I mean, not many politicians that you can say that about. You can understand that they're, you know, a little hesitant on their feet, and then have some really clever advisors around them that kind of keep them propped up. But in her case, I was quite impressed by how she came out, and then the polls went up were quite in her favor in the first few weeks of her being, you know, given the candidacy. And you know, there was real hope.
When she earned the candidacy by getting all the delegates she needed in the DNC as is needed. But yes, continue. I understand your meaning. But just
I mean, the thing is, she was definitely no Hillary Clinton. That was a disaster in the making. And
yeah, I think she's way better candidate than Hillary.
Yeah,
for sure.
I mean, I think she is a good candidate. I just worry about that that history of losing an election. I think the way you framed it is quite a nice one. Like we lost the battle, but we didn't lose the war.
Yeah.
Kind of way of talking about it. And of course, you have to be careful about how combative, given that you're dealing with these crazy far right nutcases.
So I'll just wanted to respond to the other thing you had to say, which was like it seemed like at the beginning she was like kind of less rehearsed, and then afterwards like her advisors are making her say certain things. There's a little bit of that in the book, not exactly in the way that it seems like your theory is that like people were controlling her or whatever, but
not controlling,
it's
but
like I know what you mean, but like in the book it's like generally on that particular point, and I can't remember the particulars, but it seems like really what was happening was a lot of the limitations on that sort of sense was that they were being really careful. Her campaign and / her were just like everybody just wanted to be really careful, and so they didn't take as many risks as they maybe should
That's
have,
the impression
because,
I got. Yeah, but that is a risk in itself, right? Because you can see it, you can feel it when someone generally speaks from the heart, and they're not thinking about a bunch of bullet points. It's like when I prepped for this debate today, right? I mean, I have a lot of bullet points, but I know that you should be a little bit careful about just trying to ream them off. And sometimes, if you've got a good tangent, you follow that tangent. And she has some really good tangents when she was speaking initially. And I felt like those were not followed up later on because, she was listening because she was trying to be too careful.
I think you can kind of see that like in her debate versus Trump, like when she's just like, she had like bullet points, and she talks a lot about her debate prep and like, the specific points she wanted to say. But like, I felt in the debate, like she came off really like personable, like, there were particular moments where she's like, she kind of like kind of confirms in the book that the theory that people had that she was about to call Trump this president, like that she was about to say this motherfucker or whatever. But like, yeah, there's like I think her debate performance was really good, and that kind of like is like her when it's like not a speech, right? So I definitely agree with what you're saying, but I think that could be remedied by just like having more time and being more willing to take a risk and like be more like stake out your positions way more.
Exactly. I think that is actually less of a risk overall. I also think another part, failure of the strategy. Now, there's many theories as to why it didn't happen, but that she didn't end up on the Joe Rogan podcast, and just generally on a lot of podcasts and getting deep into, away from legacy media. I don't know why that didn't happen, but if it was really Rogan's issue, not hers, then she should have vocalized, go, hey,
sure,
bring me on. I want to go on. I will even go to wherever you want to have
so
it. I'll
on
even
that,
do it with
right? She talks about that in the book. So I think she brings up a couple things in the book, which is that she brings up like on this day I did this show, and like she'll talk about I did this show with this podcast hosted by these former basketball players. She says about I did this show like the one that people were talking about at the time, like there's some woman podcast or whatever. She did do a lot of shows, but she also talks about how she wishes she could have done more, but there simply wasn't the time. Now, I think she also talks about like maybe they should have devoted more time to that versus like in-person events with whatever, but like a lot of it is like there really wasn't time to, and then which is just like maybe they should have prioritized that more versus this, and that's fair.
Exactly. Because I think the issue here is, right, you look at how many people are watching it live or watch it immediately after. They don't think about the clips that come from it, the reactions that come from it.
For sure.
They weren't really thinking about this network that exists in
But then on that,
media.
and in case she sort of makes in the book on kind of a different thing, but also I will say like they were really prioritizing like campaign events in the swing states. And Kamala's performance in swing states, in the swing states, well, she lost every single one, right? Famously, like she performed she lost by 1 to 3 points in all the swing states, or like the ones that like would have flipped the election in her favor, or whatever. And she often performed better in swing states than in non-swing states, like which is why like the popular vote went the way it did, right? Was because of her performance in like blue areas was more red than expected, and in red areas was more red, less blue than expected, whatever, right? It would be sort of that, in which case like I think you can kind of say like, well, she did really well, like the strategy worked, it just wasn't enough in like how much she was in focusing on swing states. But also kind of going back to the last thing, she lays out in the book that like it was kind of Joe Rogan's thing that she couldn't go. because he would only do the show in Austin, I think, where he would only do it there. He wouldn't travel for it. He refused to. And they were trying to figure out which dates would work, and they didn't have a date where Kamala would already be in Texas, meaning she would have to sacrifice a day or more that she would be in a swing state to go to Austin, Texas, where she wouldn't have to be, because Texas wasn't going to go for her, right?
And then she clearly thought that was worth a trade-off, right?
Yeah. Which I would say maybe not. And then also, right, the bigger thing to me, which is that they finally figured out a day. They said, "Oh, we're both available on this day. Let's do it then." And then they said, "Okay, yeah, sure. Well, let's do it then." And then they came back. Actually, we can't do it. That's a personal day for Joe Rogan. And they're like, "Oh, okay. I guess it's not happening." And then the personal day, it turns out, was the day that Joe Rogan was doing the interview with Trump. So I think Joe Rogan was like, I think she was fucked.
Well, we should have heard that?
Yeah, I agree with that for sure. And I know we did hear about it afterwards. I think we heard about it, maybe not like during the campaign, but like maybe a couple, like we heard about this many months ago before this book came out.
I heard about it. I'm sure it's during the campaign. We heard about that. They couldn't agree on the venue because, but he always does his podcast from the same place, right?
Yeah.
So I guess
they said like, he traveled once to interview, who was it? The leaker, WikiLeaks guy, that guy. They said that, but that was like a special case because whatever. But then
I can. There's an argument for it. Even if it's disingenuous, you can still frame that as an argument, right? And Trump when Trump went, so
but the reason that that day was available for Kamala was because that weekend, I think it was, Kamala and Trump were both in Texas. Was like why it worked out. So like it wasn't like Trump didn't go out of his way to go to Texas to do Joe Rogan. He happened to be. Joe Rogan's team was in talk with both, and they chose Trump instead of Kamala on that day to do the interview.
Yeah, I'm just saying how it can be framed.
But yeah, I agree with you. Yeah, it should have been.
It had terrible optics. And the other thing is they started going on, it's because she can't talk for 3 hours. She's not really herself. And I'm thinking it's the complete opposite. And this goes back to the initial point about when she was talking off the cuff that I thought she was really good. And it's probably why, like you say, that she did so well in the debates, or was it only one debate in the end?
Like she talks about specifically like particular interviews where she felt like she didn't perform as well as she could have. I think she talks about one interview that she did where like right after announcing that Tim Walz was going to be her VP, but it was also one of the first interviews that she was doing like for herself. That she wished that in hindsight that it wasn't a good idea for Tim Walz to be there. In hindsight, the venue should have been different because they like that it shouldn't have been them too because he looked so much bigger than her, like framed her badly. Like it's just she talks about very specifically about like here's the mistakes I did in this interview. I had an answer prepared but I didn't say it and I made that mistake. Like she kind of goes into that stuff.
But I don't want to admitting to mistakes that weren't mistakes. I actually thought he was a really good choice.
I agree.
Balance between them.
She never like says like I shouldn't have picked Tim Walz. It was in particular about that. I think also the only negative thing she had to say about Tim Walz in the book really was that he wasn't ready for like the debate with JD Vance, because when they were preparing for the debate with JD Vance, they didn't expect JD to like fully mask up and pretend like Sane Wash himself / Trump's campaign by like acting nice, and so Tim Walz didn't know how to respond, so he just acted nice in response and didn't actually whatever. And also that he fucked up a couple answers during the debate, which I think is true.
I mean, but yeah. So I mean, I thought it was a good balance of a down to earth. To be frank about it, a white guy.
Yeah, she talked about like those are the reasons she picked him. Like all the finalists were white men. The reason she picked him, she talks about like very particularly. The last three candidates for her VP were Tim Walz, of course, Mark Kelly, who's a senator from Arizona. He's like the astronaut guy, and Josh Shapiro, governor of Pennsylvania, I believe. She didn't pick Josh Shapiro because he was way too ambitious and it wanted to be way too involved, and it seemed like was wanting to use the VP position as a like stepping stone to president, which wasn't right for the campaign because like it had to be about her, not about the VP or whatever, and shit like that. and like she tells particular stories. Like he was like way too eager. He was like already talking about like how he wanted to decorate the vice president's house and shit like that. It was crazy. Mark Kelly she didn't want because she didn't think Mark Kelly was ready for like shit slinging because he had never dealt with that before. And she picked Tim Walz because he had like all the good like he was the opposite, completely not ambitious, was like very self-deprecating, but was super down to earth and had a really good record as a governor and shit like that. So I think he should be the right choice.
I thought he was great. I mean, he seemed ambitious for the US. He seemed ambitious for being a true patriot in a meaningful and positive sense.
Exactly.
And some of it, he gave some amazing speeches.
Yeah.
But that's actually a fourth point I could point out with regards to the Labour Party and learning from them, that there's some really ambitious people around Starmer right now, and they want to pull a Brutus on him, and you know, that's possibly where the threats to his leadership will come from this.
And like there's something there because Tim Walz is very left, and like that was part of the thing even during the campaign. Tim Walz is history in Minnesota, I think, is where he's governor. Like he's very like successfully, but like he's very left. Like they have like a lot of like paid family leave and like a bunch of shit that's like very left, but it's been successful. So he has a really good record there too, which was another reason they wanted him.
Well, that was why I asked you before. I mean, that was kind of what I was insinuating about, you know, forget the polling and, you know, who is most electable, but in terms of their politics, which candidate.
If Kamala's too left, I think she was way more left in the 2020 primaries, but I get the sense from reading her book and just in general, even her campaign, she's very pragmatic. She did moderate. I think she like it wasn't just like pretending, that she actually did moderate on a lot of reviews. And yeah, I think generally,
I describe these people as bridge builders, and I think it's true in a lot of democracies that we need them, because politics can easily go too far towards the center on average, and this is crazy. We have a one-dimensional view of politics anyway, but I do feel that people get too entrenched in their own ideological beliefs, whether they call themselves socialists or whether they call themselves centrists or even center-left. You know, if you look at all the different ownership model, if you want to really break it down to what it's often about, it's about which ownership model is better, and that's already a false question, because there isn't one better ownership model or one best ownership model. It depends on the context. It depends on the point in time. So I think pragmatism is such a healthy anecdote for that.
And I think she's very pragmatic. Like I remember at one part of the book, she did famously like an interview where I think it was The View, and she was asked by somebody on there, like, what would you do differently than Joe Biden or something? And her answer was, I can't think of a thing. And she talks about how, first of all, that was like really like fucked her a bit, which was because people want to change from Joe Biden. But also she talks about how.
But I don't think Biden. I think Biden was also quite good in this respect. That his own politics was further left than the way he came across. Yeah. It's just he didn't have the real power. He couldn't implement it.
Even just on that last thing was that she talks about how in like she answered that way, like, oh, I wouldn't do a single thing differently, or she can't think of something different she would do than Biden, whereas she already had a prepared answer for that, because obviously that was going to be a question that came up, but it just slipped her mind to answer, and said she answered the way she did. But you said that she already had an answer, and I know she said it in other places as well, but that her answer to that question was like that she would appoint a Republican to her cabinet, and that was the difference. And so like when you're talking about like bridge building, like Kamala had kind of that like instinct at least, where or if even just for like she wanted to say that so that she could get certain Republicans on board who would want to see that. Like I think that's that goes to like the pragmatism point, like and like the moment I read that in the book, I was like, oh, who would be the Republican that she would have on her cabinet? I would imagine it'd be if I'm guessing, it would be like Liz Cheney as Secretary of State or some shit like that. I don't know. Like it would be an anti-Trump Republican and like that, or maybe not Secretary of State, but like something else. I don't know.
And that goes back to our conversation earlier about, you know, sorting the system out. But effectively, what's a two-party system? You know, you need a healthy opposition. It's no good Dems being in power and then having some crazy Republicans become even crazy and go, hey, well, that's great because they're going to kick themselves out of ever being in office. No, what you end up doing is just moving that window, what's the Overton window, right, of views, and people start to take that in. Not to mention, there's always this right-wing bias of the media, unless, as Kafka was suggesting earlier, we can sort that out.
Which I think we should sort that out in the way that he was saying. But yeah.
Oh, that's what I've hypothesized. But then it's going to be immense backlash.
Yeah, it's hard.
And if it's sometimes worth not fighting the fight unless you can win the fight.
Maybe. I think you can do it. but even if it's hard, but yeah.
I think
Just
this
real
might
quick,
create the
because
opportunity to do it.
somebody
Yeah,
in chat
sorry.
said way back, and really backtracking the combo, but MT said,
Okay.
keep in mind that Trump made a football stadium of people sit in the cold waiting for him for hours. That's how Trump managed to go on the podcast, and that's also true, because they both had events in Texas that weekend. That's why they could do it, but Trump literally made people wait so he could do Joe Rogan. So yeah, like like you're saying, like, oh, maybe they should prioritize like podcasts more, but like by the time they realized that, it was already like you would have to cancel events, and like then it's like a whole other thing with canceling events and shit.
Again, it's about priorities. I mean, one of the reasons I mention it is not just about the number of people that Rogan reaches, but the type of voter. Because you have these, I mean, Rogan is not like a diehard Republican, right? I mean, he voted for Bernie Sanders, and
I agree. I agree generally with what you're saying, but like he's a Republican. He's like,
well, he is now.
He's
In fact,
he's
I mean,
all in. Like that guy's, he's lost it. I think people I think people overstate like how centrist he is, or like, oh, he was Sanders or whatever. Like he's a populist, and right now.
Okay, but the reason
crazy shit.
Yeah, but the reason he would say that is because that he knows that his listeners like to hear that.
Exactly.
And if his listeners like to hear that, then some of his listeners are definitely of that ilk.
Wow.
And there's plenty. You see plenty of
I also think there's a lot more people who pretend to be centrist and are actually just rebel. But yeah, I agree.
I mean, there's a lot of people that said, "Hey, I voted for Obama and I voted for Trump." There's a lot of, I've seen it. I mean, okay, it's anecdotal, but it becomes almost.
But also, I'd also call those people retarded. But yeah, for sure.
Hey,
he still appeal to retards, kind of. So yeah, I agree.
Well, exactly. And then it's about the language in which you. I mean, you know, this is one of the reasons that the podcast does so well, because it is quite simple language, put in simple terms, and also leaves people prone to manipulation in this way. But yeah, that is that we have to accept the reality on the ground, and you know that goes back to the ideological issue. That goes back to all of the discussion we've had this evening, of. You know, what can be changed in power? What can we change in Germany compared to what can we change in the US? I mean, these can be different things. We always have to think not just where we want to get to, but how we get there and if it's possible. And sadly, often that just isn't the case. And that's why I generally like politicians with quite left-wing views, but don't necessarily end up even trying to implement them because they probably realize it's not realistic. It's frustrating then for them to be framed as, you know, you're not left-wing enough, but in practice, it just doesn't work. It's like the wealth tax, right? Which the Green Party in the UK are proposing. I don't know if you're aware of this, but the Green Party leader actually interviewed Hassan, this guy named Polinsky. He's a very bright, charismatic guy, but he's pushing like the wealth tax as like the answer to all of the UK's funding problems.
It doesn't work.
Well, okay. And to be fair to him, he's now put it in stone as to what he expects. So it'll be a 1% tax over £10 million pounds worth of savings, right? It's not extreme, and I actually think, and I would argue for, and this is a bit of a hot take, I think it might be quite good, but it's not going to solve the problems. It's maybe part of the solution, but this is the issue. Like they're dressing this up as like, the billionaires are the problems. You've got one member of the Green Party that's reasonably influential saying, imagine Britain without any billionaires, wouldn't it be great? And I'm thinking, no, like you need all that tax revenue that you lose. That's insane. What are you talking about? And so they put all this focus on billionaires, which I do think is part of the problem. You know, the inequality you have in society, and I do think you could have a very moderate wealth tax that doesn't lead to flight of people of taxable revenue, because then you actually end up with, losing less tax.
I mean, there's like a million reasons to be against it. Like maybe if it's reasonable, you could do it, whatever. But yeah,
exactly.
I agree generally.
It's a dressing up of like these few policy positions as solving everything. And then you ignore actually other parts of the solution, some of which aren't. And like the fact that the state doesn't have infinite money, and some, you know, things that will be nice won't be able to be implemented in terms of funding for, you know, children's activities at school, or, you know, having class sizes with 3 children per teacher or something stupid like this. It's just completely unrealizable, as nice as the idea would be. And I really do feel this is the problem with the further left of our parties, that they don't see the path to the end result, or if they do see it, then they're hallucinating. It really doesn't actually exist. And so I respect any politician that says, "Hey, the path's not there. Sadly, we can't go there." And I feel like Harris is a good example of a politician who would like to get there but doesn't see the path there right now. So I mean, to answer the question I gave you about, with candidates, I think Harris is someone that's closer to me than Newsom. I think he's nearer the center ideologically. But in terms of optics and rhetoric, I mean, he's been pretty good as well. But in the end, it's about getting power first, and then you can make the changes. So yeah, it's been good to talk to you. I mean, it's the first time we've really talked, right?
It's good to talk to you. You seem like a cool guy.
And if you want me on again randomly for conversations about
I'll give you
global
perms so you can
politics.
join stream if you ever see me live and you want to come on.
I appreciate it.
Yeah.
And we can talk about also the Russia-Ukraine conflict, for example. I've been to Ukraine a few times, and I really care about that country.
Yeah, with something like Ukraine, I'm very much like on certain things. It's like I don't even know that much about it. I know enough to know that Ukraine's right, Russia's bad, so I just don't even need to look into it more on certain things. So I'm sure you would be able to
for sure,
educate me on a lot more of that stuff. I'd love to talk.
That's all good and well, but it's about how we support Ukraine and if there are limitations on that. So I wrote an article a few months ago, and to keep plugging pragmatic papers, but there we go.
Based.
About the how much Europe can fill the gap left by the US. And there were some positive signs, but of course there's limitations. It's not about intent always, but sometimes it's about the capabilities and capacities. But I will say this, that in Germany, for example, there's a lot of apathy towards military support, and it's just this toxic form of pacifism that actually ends up leading to more conflict. And it feeds into the game theory thing of just capitulating.
Yeah.
But there is a German problem in that regard. So politicians, have to toe a line of not being too overtly supportive. There's more to talk about. Of course, Ukraine should be supported.
Hell yeah,
it's a question of how we support them, and that's.
I think that's a really good question, and I feel like you went on Destiny's stream to talk about that a bit, and he kind of said the same thing I'm about to say, if I remember, maybe, or he said it at other times. But it's like I'm almost not even worried about how to support Ukraine right now because there's so many other things to be because Republicans won't do it, so it's but I'm very much as much as we need to give them, fucking give them. For me, it's I give them everything, fucking whatever they ask for. But I'm sure you would be able to go more specific on what you think that is and shit. So yeah, I don't.
Well, I slightly disagree with you that it's not something that the US should think about, and this shutdown has shown that Democrats do have more power than perhaps we initially thought. And there are other, methods of kind of legal disobedience that they can implement, with filibusters and such like, and really, bending the arms of the Republicans that way. And they might get some concessions. And I would say one concession is maintaining that support for Ukraine. I think there is a quiet supporter in, Marco Rubin, what's his name? The
Mark
Secretary of State. Yeah, Cuban. Sorry. I think he quietly.
Marco Rubio. Yeah.
Marco Rubio, thank you, sir. He is, I think on our side on this one of the few topics here. Of course, publicly can't be so overt in this regard, and I think therefore it'd be one of the topics that they could more easily, get some concessions out of Margaret about.
Maybe.
And without that, I mean, Ukraine falling. The US may lose a major ally.
It's real. It's
Europe.
Real bad if that happens.
Exactly. It should be reasonably prioritized. It shouldn't be just something extraneous. But
I agree for sure.
Yeah, thanks for having me on today, Zip Zip.
Of course.
And,
I hope we'll be able to have you on next week. We will. I don't hope. We will.
Okay,
next week
we'll have another conversation next week if it comes to it.
For sure. And then, I already gave you the role. You can always pop in if you see I'm live. You want to talk about something, or if you want to ever say oh hey, can we talk about Ukraine on this day? Reach out, man.
It's just one I did. Yeah, I mean, you can if you read any of my articles and you disagree with some of my perspectives.
I should read the pragmatic papers more for sure.
Everybody should. I mean, no, it's really growing. It's really a good thing. And if you want to write for the pragmatic paper, especially after reading this book about Harris, it'd be really interesting to have your take on that.
For sure. After the after I go to her event next week, I'm gonna be looking into that a lot more. and I'll probably just write shit down. And
excellent.
get y'all's help editing and shit. So yeah.
Cool. Yeah. Well, have a great rest of your day, and yeah,
too.
we'll catch up soon. Yeah.
All right. Bye-bye.
Yeah. Bye.
Wow, what a nice guy. Let me respond to some chatters, because I haven't been for a few seconds. DEG Strongest asked, did Destiny address the comment about talking with this person on the phone? I don't think he has, but it's very simple. So you have to think that Rose is lying about that it wasn't her and that he was being catfished, or you can just believe, which is what could be obvious if you think about it for 2 seconds. Maybe Solo used a voice changer, or he got somebody to pose, or he got Rose to pose as Destiny, or as he got her to talk with him, or whatever the fuck, like, or maybe he meant talking on the phone, like Discord or whatever. Who the fuck knows? He could have just it could have been anything, but you have to think that Rose is lying, or the person who, like, this person, the person whose ex-boyfriend was impersonating her in Discord. Island Lad. Behind what people always overstate how much Rogan supported Sanders, he never endorsed Sanders and said he also liked Yang and others. There you go. Rose posing as Destiny the plot thing. Yeah, I misspoke. You know what I mean. You know what I mean. Also, what's up, Kev? How you doing? Talk to Maya on Disc. Maya... Who? Maya Higa? What the... Oh, I see what you mean. Maya, the AI that he wasn't talking to. That he was just talking to an AI, not an actual person. I see what you mean. Yeah. He was catfished by the FBI cinema. I don't think he was the FBI. Maybe though. That'd certainly be cinema. Baby asked me ask Luna. Yeah, I also thought Maya Luna immediately, but DG Strongest. Before the court memes, Destiny talked about the fear of being catfished and asked a girl to send a pic with her finger pressed on her cheek. Wonder if that was the same person, lol. Maybe. Because if, like, this wasn't just a random cat, like, this was, they're saying ex-boyfriend who was imprisoning her, so he could have been, like, if Destiny had asked, hey, do this to prove that you're not a catfish, like, Solo could have just told Rose, hey, can you do this? And then whatever, right? We would know more if, like, transcript stuff ever got out or anything, but we don't know. Flowage, the Cash Patel grudge is bigger and goes back longer than we expected. Maybe, dude, maybe. Yeah, that's what Merrick Garland was doing instead of prosecuting Trump. He was doing a catfish operation on Destiny. Hold on, I'm not reading YouTube chat. I feel bad. Not gonna let he lost aura getting catfish for years? Well, maybe. Mantis says, hang on, this doesn't say Solo was Rose the whole time. Lol, just some of the time, maybe, I guess. Well, doesn't say that. But it also doesn't say not that. Non-party deponent was saying that the ex-boyfriend was impersonating her in Discord correspondence he was having with Benel while pretending to be Rose. Saying it doesn't say the whole time, but it also doesn't say not the whole time. Destiny has been saying that the whole time. You believe him or not, but I believe that it was the whole time, not Rose. Or not the woman, it was actually Solo. Tiny leaks. Then why wouldn't he leak it way earlier? Well, he can't, right? Because it would be it's stuff that's from the deposition, meaning it's stuff from discovery, meaning it's governed by the protective order regarding the case, meaning he can't just leak whatever the fuck he wants. And Destiny would never release stuff from transcripts that aren't available to the public. He would never do that, so of course none of us could know, and he couldn't leak it. I certainly don't know. I believe it said it was him the whole time. Why would he leak it? Court struggle. Yeah, he can't. He couldn't. Right. Black Cat, your message got AI modded, but I'll read it. Does this mean Destiny is gay? I don't think this means Destiny is gay. However, Destiny is still gay. So, there you go. So do they know who Solo is? We don't know. They haven't said so. Maybe they do, maybe they didn't. Maybe they asked Rose about it, maybe they didn't. Who's to say? I wouldn't know anything more than you guys do, right? Surely. Oh no, why wouldn't Solo leak it years earlier? Well, so the question obviously is, okay, we know that he was blackmailing, right? Like, get rid of like, oh, this doesn't make sense, right? Assume that it's true. Like, he was waiting for the right time. Like, that's how blackmail works, right? You wait for whenever you think it's the right moment. Solo did it when Destiny was kind of peaking, right? And we know this in retrospect. Like, Destiny's kind of career was kind of peaking, like end of last year after elections, and he was like at the peak in January whenever he was getting interviews with DNC and people. He would sit on it because he wanted to wait for the right moment, and then he did it. Or he could be sitting on it for whatever fuck else reason. Like, who knows? But you would have to ask Solo why he's sitting on it. Versus, I don't think it's a good reason to not believe it. If that's what you're saying, which I don't know if it is exactly, but you know what I mean. Could have blackmailed him years before. Yeah, could have blackmailed him years before, but it depends, you know. Maybe he didn't want anything at the time. Maybe he wanted things after. Depends. Opinions on the Irish zipper. What is the Irish zipper? Is that a thing that I should know about as ZipZip 45? Irish zipper. What is this? It's just a type of zipper. Set where men's coats are. I was in Ireland earlier this year, and the zipper was on the other left side. And this is an Irish thing. I'm not sure. I don't think I'd have a preference. I don't think I would. Destiny just got it was me buried. Nah, yeah, he got it was me buried all along. Yeah, you were a zipper mate. Mantis he couldn't have blackmailed him during that rumor mill. Depends what you mean. Like, the blackmail happened. Like, Solo reached out to Destiny privately and said, "Give me, like, let me on stream and give me this, or I'm gonna leak this all." And they leaked it, and then the blackmail's done, right? Like, for whatever you want to say, right? At the even before we found out that he was behind it the whole time. Like, we already knew he was a retarded blackmailer, because like he just like released it. But also, Destiny wasn't ever gonna give into blackmail. Like, that's why it got leaked, because he didn't give the blackmailer what he wanted. So, who the fuck knows? Damon says, and there's a clear through line with everything. The Substack dropping on January 20th is also no coincidence, getting him online for the first 2 weeks of the administration taking over. Well, I don't subscribe to that. I haven't seen evidence of that it's like Pixie wasn't like also did it like, well, while it's true, she did it also at a perfect moment to fuck Destiny over. She wasn't like coordinating to fucking like with Solo or whatever, but yeah. The Lauren Southern thing, zip. Oh, well, I mean, that was always rumor milling around, but also it wouldn't have, like, think about it another way. Like, if he had leaked it before, it kind of would have just gone the same. So like, there wasn't any hindrance to waiting. Like, he didn't lose anything by waiting. So I don't think we have to, like, it's a good question. Like, why didn't he do it earlier? But also, he didn't lose anything by waiting either way. By waiting, he maximized the amount of damage, which is Destiny had grown a lot after like the red pill arc and shit, and like maybe he was just waiting, like, oh, he kind of saw what everybody else was seeing, which is that Destiny was on an upstream, and then he decided to do it then. Who knows? He's always planned to get leaked. He wanted to get on and leak at the same time for more range. Sunday and the other dude dropped their videos with timing for maximized aspect. Well, yeah. Well, Sunday and the other guy, they dropped it because they were finding out, and they knew that Pixie was about to drop her Substack. Like, in Sunday's video or one of the other, like, they literally have parts of the Substack that Pixie was going to drop. Fudge said, but got AI modded. It could have also been he was just a schizo fan who did this and then turned anti-fan or something. That is also true, Mantis, which is a good point. I didn't even think about that, but Fudge made a good point. It could have been that he did it, but it was just a schizo, and then he became an anti-fan and then decided to leak. Like, it could have been like a crazy fucking, like, could have just been a parasocial weirdo who was blackmailing, or it was like, catfishing Destiny, and then it became blackmail. But the intention originally was just to catfish and like as a whatever. But yeah. Oh, thanks for the follow, Kellogg's Rice. Appreciate it. At Mantis, blackmailers wait for moments of high leverage from like August 2024 to November 2024. It was high leverage for blackmailing because he was on the real come up, being to speak directly with those in power. So yeah, that's kind of what I'm saying, Ivan, is like Destiny was on an upswing. He was like kind of peaking in his career wise. Like it makes perfect sense that it happened at that point. You could ask why it didn't happen before, but yeah. Deleted by moderator, huh? Yeah, you got AI modded. I can stream, but he typed schizo all caps, like the emote. So yeah. I'm not sold, but maybe. Well, I think to not be sold, you have to. So, right now, what we have is here's evidence of this person, Rose. I'll call her Rose for the sake of ease, right? But this person, Rose, is telling us that it wasn't her and that it was Solo impersonating her talking to Destiny. Saying this under penalty of perjury. That's the evidence we have. You can not believe it. However, this is like she's saying it's the case, and it lines up with everything else that we know. The other side is like you think, oh, it doesn't make sense, which fair if you think that. But I think the evidence points in that direction. And like you could say like also on the other part, right? Like before Destiny like showed like here's all the things I sent to ABMC. Like ABMC's word is like. She said that she received the video from Destiny of Pixie. I was like, okay, sure. But eventually, and like, then you can like attack the credibility of the person. Like, ABMC is kind of schizo, crazy. I have spoken to her on Discord. She's an insane person. Eventually, Destiny showed, hey, here's all the things I sent to ABMC. None of them are the video from Pixie. Is what's not true. That's why I'm like, no, there's no chance that you can take Abby's word for it. I don't think there's any reason not to trust Rose's word on this, if she's saying it. But yeah. Was it ever Rose on the other end? We don't know. We don't know. This is all we know. This one sentence is that Rose said that the ex-boyfriend was impersonating her in Discord. Technically, this doesn't mean the whole time, but I would lean towards that direction. People don't wait on this shit for hypothetical growth. I mean, we don't know if he was waiting for it or if he just decided to do it one day. It could have just been that he was just catfishing and thought it was like funny to catfish Destiny, and then eventually decided to blackmail because he turned an anti-fan, or who knows? Because I think people were theorizing that months ago that this was like a fan that became an anti-fan after some time, and that's when he decided to leak. I think that conclusion makes sense. I can stream. It's crazy if all this is true, then if Doe and Destiny sued this Solo guy, it would have been a trivial case. Yeah. That's like the biggest thing out of this is like, if true, and it appears to be, that Rose wasn't like, that it was Solo like catfishing the whole time, then you have made this lawsuit such a shit show when you had a way easier suit against Solo, and you could have been co-plaintiffs along with other people who were in those leaks, whoever they are, and then fucking everybody gone after him. But instead, you're going after Destiny, who you're not going to get much damages from even. Like, what do you, like, yeah. Black Cat says, I've read his Discord messages, he just seems like a complete psychopath. Yeah, and it could just be that, like, he just one day went crazy and did it, or he was crazy the whole time, but was, like, biding his time because he thought he was crazy, or, I don't know. Like, this is a crazy thing to do. I think it's hard to, like, assess this person's state of mind to figure out why did they wait so long, like, whatever. Like, I think we can take this right now. Like, you can hedge, if you think it doesn't make sense, but I think the longer this goes on, the more we'll find out. And like as time has gone on, we found out about this. Solo would have gotten some serious prison time too, right? Yeah, I mean, still could. Like they can still find him and still go after him. He is like on the hook for a lot of shit, like transmission of CSAM, like fraud maybe. I don't know if that would really count, but also like he's at least liable for the Cardi statute. Like Destiny can sue him under the Cardi, which is what Pixie's doing to him, because that's what he did. He published sexual material illegally, right? None of this leads to thinking he was doing it the whole time. Rose has a lot of reason to lie. Rose also has lots of reasons not to lie, which is that she is under oath, and like that could be like if she's lying, right? Like she would also be like could face shit for that. So like she has good reason. Like if she was involved, she has good reason to lie because it would be illegal. But also, if she was involved, she was a minor at the time, so she would like. There's other shit, right? Like she could even if she's lying, right? And it would depend how much her involvement is. But if her involvement was she was involved in this, right, and like knew that this was happening, and was like coordinating and like she was actually talking to Destiny, whatever, like she could like do a plea, like eventually it'll be found out in theory, right? So she has every reason to like cooperate and be like, oh, okay, you found me, okay, yes, I did this, but this guy was doing this, and I'll take a plea deal and I'll turn on Solo. So like, yeah, like I see what you're saying, Mantis, but also there's also lots of reasons she would tell the truth. Incentivized to lie for sure, but she's spoken to her oath in a deposition. He created C7 and distributed. Yeah, it appears to be. And with Baby Lesmy's, Black Cat, we need to depose him and something him if possible. I don't know about the second one, depending on what you said, but yes, they will probably want to depose him for this case, but they wasted so much time that they might not be able to find him in time, right? Assuming there's a criminal investigation, we won't know until they charge, if ever. Correct. Maybe we just won't know until they charge people and get like shit on that. I'll be honest, the situation is convoluted, spread out, and incoherent. I think it ever making sense is going to be an ask. Kind of true, Fudge. It's asking a lot to be like, how do we explain this perfectly for it to make sense? Like, this is just insane. Like, I don't even know. Glace dies, and is Solo the ex-boyfriend? That seems to be like technically they don't say here the ex-boyfriend Solo Tiny Leaks, but Solo Tiny Leaks' story was that he was an ex-boyfriend, and that's what like, so it tracks, right? It lines up with what Solo Tiny Leaks said on KF, right? The appeal of the case is very weakened at this point because you have one of the people in the leak blaming Destiny and not Solo. Kind of, but it doesn't matter what the victim thinks for stuff like this. If they charge, then they'll charge, and it almost doesn't matter what the victim thinks for something like this. Like, you'll get that even sometimes in other like unrelated stuff to this, like where a victim doesn't want to press charges, and like in theory that matters, but in some cases it might not matter if the prosecutor wants to go after it anyways, like depending. Rose testified he was her ex-boyfriend. They must have asked for his name, right? Should be trivial to de-anonymize him if that is the case. Maybe they depose her. They probably asked for his name. If she knows it, they probably have it. If she doesn't, they might not, but yeah, that is true. Who knows? We don't know anything except for this one sentence. Is extortion a crime as well? He would also be, they could also get on extortion because he did try to blackmail. So yeah, true. They have him a fuck ton of shit. So, Rose is incentivized to cooperate because she could tell them about this other person who's doing way worse shit, who they could get way worse on. So, like, that's her incentive to cooperate, right? If she was guilty of some stuff. It is if we listen to Biggie Smalls' Crime After Crime from Drugs to Extortion. There you go. He gave her a fake identity as well. No, maybe. Oh, imagine if he gave her a fake identity as well. I mean, who knows? Who the fuck knows? Damn. What a day. So no E-Court today, guys. It'll probably happen next week at a similar time. Thursday at this. But who knows? So far it looks like that's the time, but we'll keep you guys posted because I do want to do that, and also we rescheduled ban appeals because gonna go after this. But yeah, do you go over Destiny's DGG messages? No, should I? I can go over them. Be fine. I already had a Russell search open in a different thing because I was looking at them. But yeah, we can cover them. What did he say? Starting today with Game of Thrones. Don't care about Game of Thrones. Don't care. Oh shit. One of the big memes is in the new filings. X-Face. Rainy Flotilla, the one that just dropped today. Previnity for 3 years. Actually unbelievable. Talking about it in the future as more stuff comes out. What was he responding to here? What did Previnity say? Previnity. Dink donk, the filing meme. Ex-boyfriend impersonated her in Discord correspondence to having banal while pretending to be arrested. So, correct. So Destiny said for 3 years. Interesting. Bisco, what did Bisco say? Yes, it's way worse than that. Just remember, by the time all this resolves, Pixie knows. What did BSCO say? Do I have to go? Fuck, I'm not looking for past this, but remember, by the time all this resolves, Pixie knows all of this and is just sitting on it to keep drawing things out, while some unbelievably horrible shit has happened is being let go on the background. So what he means by this is kind of what we were just saying, like, Pixie's been aware that Solo is impersonating Rose and is still going with the shit, right? So, Topper asks, that was the drop he was vague posting about for a month? Maybe. Appears to be that this was the drop that he wants to know. Oh, what? Oh, we've known this for 3 weeks. It's so much worse than just me being catfished. So there you go. We've known this for 3 weeks. And he's saying that it's worse than that. I wouldn't know, but I could see it being worse depending on what Rose did say in the deposition, right? Because like all we know is that she said that he was impersonating her. There could be way different shit in the fucking deposition. Like we've been theorizing for a while that like, oh, maybe she was fucking literally sex trafficked and like she was fucking like underage and shit. Like if her deposition reveals that, then that'd be fucking insane, right? Damon said, Damon, I think like 2 weeks. We have filed a thing to have them correct their public filing if they don't, then we file for more sanctions. Ooh. Damon, what did Damon say? That's the ETA on where you can give us more than vague posting about it. Oh, so he's saying like maybe 2 weeks we can say more. I think, yep. What did Cosmic Stray say? Cosmic Stray. Shouldn't they get sanctioned for putting unverified statements in public? Oh, there you go. Yeah. What's the worst thing about LA? That would be crazy. What did Tree 44 say? Tree 44. I know that guy. He's in here, right? Wait, so if I understand this correctly, this girl was trafficked and Pixie's using this for her fraudulent lawsuit against Destiny? Oh, Destiny said that would be crazy. That would be crazy if that was the case, that this girl was trafficked and Pixie's using that. That would be crazy. I remember that KF and JStock and Willie Mac and everyone all happily and gleefully were posting this girl's docs and videos and everything else all over the internet too. Huge thumbs up on that. Yeah. What did a boy called Sue say? A boy called Sue. What did... I'm not... Okay. I'm not going back to see what they say, but it's even worse than that. But yes, so he's saying it's even worse than whatever. Called Sue said, every day the spoiled dipshit drags his case out is another day the solo guy gets to cover his tracks. Smile, so cool. He responded... 344 say... This reminder, this was you niggas in January. Pixie say strong TGL, Pixie TGL, Pixie bro. Yeah, good one. Yep, but there's only half. There's another big spicy meatball in the pipeline. There's more in the pipeline. What the hell? There's crazier shit. God damn. Let me read some stuff people were asking. How long ago was the Rose deposition or whatever? Well, we know from the Pixies filing last night that there was a deposition of somebody in Illinois on October 23rd. Now, that could be this Rose person if she were in Illinois, hypothetically. But I would guess that was her. Because it so far it seems like this was the only deposition that happened, therefore it must have been that one that they've said there's only been one other deposition of an unproven witness. Black Cat says there could be crazy stuff in that deposition. Can't wait for that to release. I can't wait either. There could be really crazy stuff in Rose's deposition. You're so right, actually. Can't wait. Oh shit, thanks for the follow, Olgan. And Glaze says spicy meatball. There might be a spicy meatball in the works, perhaps. Who's to say? Ebon, I have an imagination of how bad the second ball is, but it's all speculation, more than 180 characters on YouTube. Speculate ahead, buddy. As long as you say that you're speculating. But who knows? I mean, there's a million things you could fucking imagine. Who the fuck knows? I mean, she could have said all kinds of crazy things. Who knows? Somebody said depositions don't get released, though I thought Destiny would have to recount it. Well, Kind of, yeah, but it can be used, like, transcript could be used in other motions, right? And other filings. So, like, they could talk about the relevant things. Like, if they want to bring stuff up, they can bring it up if it's relevant to whatever they're trying to say. So, could work. They could still come out. But you're right that it might not be released. But in talking to Kafka earlier, he said that it could be. After all this, they could put the transcript or whatever. Like, remember, like, there was a hearing April 4th for, like, some random shit. Like, we only got that transcript because they put Destiny's lawyers put that in as an exhibit in one of their filings, and that's how we know what happened there. I read that way back when on Darius' stream when we were doing DGG after hours, but like, yeah, like shit can come out. I was kind of saying that like maybe we'll just never find out about a lot of this stuff, but it's like we could find out. It's not all like we'll never find out ever. Like this is whatever, but we could. Who knows? Who's to say? Could be crazy shit in that deposition, though. I would love to see what's in there. I would love to see what she said. Because that'll... The way Destiny's putting it, it could make it really bad that KF and JStuck and Willie Mac were all happily and gleefully posting his closed docs and videos and everything all over. It appears to be, so... If she said shit that's like bad for Destiny, he probably wouldn't be gloating about this deposition, so... I doubt it looks bad for him, basically. But okay, is there anything else to cover, y'all? I'm hungry. I want to go eat. Yeah, I've been streaming for many hours. How many hours have I been live? Almost 4 hours. There you go. I think you guys got your fill of zip for the day. I might go live later, but for now, I think I'll go offline. Thanks everybody for hanging out. Thanks for being here. Thanks for watching. I'm sorry we didn't get to do E-Court or Ban Appeals, but we got some content in. Some good conversation with Kafka and DRT and Reasonriffs. Yeah. Last thing, Eban says, speculation, this is from a Law & Order episode, Eastern Euro immigrant trapped by a relationship was sexually exploited for CSAM creation and distribution. Who knows? That would be crazy if that was the case, right? I wonder if Rose said anything along those lines. Jeffter says, zip L. Yo, thanks. Zip L to all of you, if that's a thing. Maybe I should make that emote. Zip L. Bye, Harper Cordal. I'll see you guys next stream. Maybe I'll go live later, or maybe not. Is there anybody live I can host? Oh shit, go watch Darius. Okay. Ready, go watch Darius. I'll be hosting him. See you guys later. Bye.